guys, can't believe you support this idiot, but thank you for watching Listen Loco.
How much are we getting paid for this?
Okay, this is going to be episode 32 of Listen Loco. And is this actually the first repeat guest that we had on this particular show, not including the Worlds one? Is that? I think this might be the first person we had as a repeat.
No, Daniel and Ashley.
Oh, yes, you're right. So Dagon, that one only half counts because that was like your mate who you did just get on when someone else cancelled. I guess Ashley does count. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We did have her twice. Fair enough. Whatever. It's the first proper LCS return guest. Sadly, there hasn't been any drama. So anyone who's like hyped up for some sick battle, there's not really any. We're just going to talk about the LCS, that thing that everyone watches every week and pretends to know everything about.
Oof.
Whereas at least Loco, he sort of knows he only knows about 80% about the game. I know about 5%. Mark, where would you put yourself on the percent of how much you know about LCS? Have you been on a heat recently?
No, so I was at 50% prediction rate. I got a 5-0 day yesterday, so I guess I'm doing okay now. I would say I'm 70%, 75, 70%.
Wait a minute, 5-0 day? So for example, you picked Golden Guardians to beat Echo Fox.
Right. Well, so I was trolling when I did that because so the story was like I kept picking Echo Fox to win on Sunday because the whole like rush never goes.
Yes,
0-2.
which has now failed twice in a row.
Yeah, so I was like, fuck that guy. Like I'm gonna pick against him all the time then, and so like I just kept getting Sundays wrong with Echo Fox. So I just continued to pick against Echo Fox on Sundays. So I did pick Golden Guardians, but not because I actually thought were gonna beat him.
Okay. I mean, I just said that as an aside, but do you want to talk about Golden Guardians? I mean, I know there's a guy in the middle of the screen. I don't know where Loco is on the overlay, but there's a guy who, I don't know, what's that? Are those glasses? How shouldn't there be egg all over those? That's weird. Weird. All right. And the thing is as well, I remember him telling me that like most of the Golden Guardians like roster wasn't working, and the mid laner especially, Garbo, which is weird because I watched this one game. I think it was the one they played against... it was the one they lost. It's the one they played against Clutch Gaming. Did you watch that game, Loco? Your boy Piglet was in that game. Did you watch Clutch Gaming against Golden Guardians?
Yeah, I mean...
Who was the one player you'd say on Golden Guardians who didn't play like a complete shitheel?
I mean, Froggen, sure. So.
All right, yeah, just wondering.
How about that game against Rush that we were just talking about in Echo Fox where they finally snapped the streak? Like, who was the guy who hard carried that game too?
There was that 9-kill Victor performance, I believe it was.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, But to be fair, they should have just banned Karthus against him. Probably wouldn't have been able to. Oh shit, he was on Karthus. My bad. Yeah. Oh, Nivea. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's start.
Did they have Victor back in season 2? I don't remember. You let me know, Loco. Oh no, that's right. Victor came out once. You were already retired. Yeah, my bad.
All right, let's start with Golden Guardians and their identity and why I still have somewhat of a problem with Golden Guardians. Yeah. So, when I think Golden Guardians, I think they have absolutely no early game. This team does not know how to build leads early. They don't know how to be proactive early. And I will say, I do think Froggen is stepping up more and more. I love the addition of Victor to his pool, but my still biggest criticism of Froggen would be not being able to snowball his leads and affect other lanes that much, and also being kind of boxed in to one playstyle of champion. All these control mages. Like, the meme used to be he can only play Season 2 control mages with Orianna, Karthus, and Anivia. Now that he added Victor, that meme isn't that true, but it's still very much just playing control mages and team fighting better than other players later on. And I don't think that's the only thing mid lane is about anymore. So Froggen's still very good at what he does, but he's not very versatile and he can't do many things. And Ole and Contractz actually look really bad. I think Ole has always been a one-dimensional player, but this year in this split, it's been especially worse, and I'm not quite sure what's wrong with Juan. But Contractz looks really off.
Contractz looks terrible, mate. Like, I think he is literally... I won't say like he threw the whole game, but he has been one of the primary factors in most of the games I've seen that they've lost. Like, I remember, again, I'm trying to think what game this was from. Let me think. Was this actually from the Clutch Gaming? I remember there was one game where he was playing Lee Sin, and he actually like kicked a guy out of a fight, and the guy just ran away. Which is like, Jesus, don't do the kick if you're not facing the right direction. Like, if there's one thing I hate, it's when people play like mechanical junglers like that, and then they just fuck all the mechanics up. It's like, maybe Sejuani's for you, mate.
It's weird because Contractz should be good at that stuff. Like he always had pretty good mechanics, and he was a lot more early game focused of a player. So like the Camille's, the Lees, the Xin Zhao should be what he's good at. But this season, yeah, it's been pretty bad on them.
Mark, what's your thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, go on. That's also though where I wonder, because one of the toughest things about all junglers is you never know. Like, unless you literally know the internal dynamics of the team, like, is it him setting all this shit up? Does he tell people stuff and interpret the information? Do people just essentially tell him where to go? And then he's just doing his pathing, and then he tells them, yeah, I can come now, once they tell it. Because that's the big problem I have when you play on a team like Cloud9, which obviously have all those really good players, like a bunch of veterans, some of the best players at their position, is those guys are going to be perfectly suited to tell you when to come to them, when it's safe, when they can set up a gank for you with all these things. Whereas if I have to say, looking at Golden Guardians, I would guess, this is pure speculation, they don't look like a team that has great shot calling and communication. Like, they still look like that's the reason they have to just wait until the late game. Like, you basically have to like start fights with them, but they win. That's how they win these games. It's ridiculous.
Give me one sec. Let me pause and turn up Mark. Give me one, because people are saying you're low, so let me turn you up. Sorry, bud. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
I was gonna say I agree. There was that one play in that Echo Fox game where after they killed Phoenix first or second time, Contractz was in like top river and like trying to escape through the mid lane, and Phoenix just roamed up and killed him completely free. And that's one of those things where you're like, oh, Contractz such a fucking idiot. But like maybe he was busy because there was a skirmish on the top side. He didn't notice, and like maybe it was Froggen who didn't call that like mid was missing, like something like that. It's hard to say, but they definitely don't have good coordination. They won that game because like Rush played one of the worst games I've ever seen, just like literally EQing it and dying time and time again with no MR.
Well, do you guys think Golden Guardians can improve? Because I think the things they're bad at are extremely hard to improve on, and all their players are super one-dimensional, and they're just being who they are. Like, I think Juan is having an off year, but for majority of them, this is what I thought their players would be, and that's what they're turning out to be. I do think Concert is the only player that's really versatile that can play multiple styles. Other than that, Froggen playing a control mage, not being proactive early, definitely being a promising rookie, but really struggling with Ole, who's also a really one-dimensional player and who's struggling a lot in lane, who can't play some of the melee supports.
You do realize you are saying that you want this person to stop picking control mages, play proactively early, yet you've just admitted that his jungler and support are the worst players on his team, and that the team doesn't have any coordination. How was he supposed to just play fucking Zed like Westdoor 4 years ago and just dive in with Flash under the tower to please you?
No, I think...
What's he supposed to do?
I think Froggen is a great laner, and if he can carry a lot of those laning fundamentals into maybe more proactive early game champions. Let's say he plays something like Lissandra, right? And he can still kind of build the kind of priority, build the kind of bleed. He can work with Juan to dive bottom or dive top and enable Haunter more. But we don't see any of that. We see Froggen laning extremely well and building a lead for himself, but that's about it. His lead never means the team's lead, and that means so much in League of Legends right now.
It sounds like the team's not coached very well.
Go ahead, Mark.
I generally agree with that. I don't think Froggen usually roams that well. I think the Echo Fox game was actually one of his best ones because he went bot and tried to force a dive, didn't get it, left lane both times to get the Drakes, to get the Drakes early with Contractz. So that was probably his most active game, and I think it shows like he is hopefully starting to do a little bit more. I think the way their team works, given, I know this is a topic we're going to get into, how shitty the rest of some of the NALCS looks, like I actually think it's a fine style where like Contractz Haunter's stuck on like Scion / Urgot duty, and they'll pick whatever is the best bruiser probably in the meta for him. And Froggen plays control mages. Contractz and Ole are supposed to be like your monkeys in the early game who try and get one of your laners ahead, and then Froggen's like the late game carry. Like, I can see that actually being a mid, like 5th through 7th place team in this LCS. I mean, that's not great, but yeah.
Sure. No, here's the thing, Loco. The problem with the way you set that question up there is you didn't say what the context of the rest of the LCS is, as Mark just touched on there. Like, let's be real. Once you get out of like the top, I'd say like the top 4 teams at a stretch, maybe, every one of those other teams are beating each other, and it's totally logical they are, because you look at the games, these are terrible games where people just don't know what they're doing. It's like, I can't believe how many games I've seen in the last 2 weeks of the LCS where the team that has the lead and is engaging the team fights is losing the team fights. It's like, people are engaging team. Like, I'll even, off the top of my head, I don't want to make this a whole tangent because we'll go into this later. But when Team Liquid played the game against TSM, that big game that everyone memed on because TSM finally won, it's like, I wouldn't even feel that fucking proud about if I was TSM and I won that game. Like, Team Liquid just gave you half those kills. Like, they were doing fights when people were in the base and stuff. TSM, I remember, had a moment where Sven just got killed 1v2 in the middle of the bot lane while his Thresh was just walking through lane to come and meet him. It's like, this is like silver shit. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you in the middle of the lane there? Early game as a Kaiser. Like, are you even aware what these champions are? Like, I don't even know that much, but I would understand you obviously have a safe zone you're never going to go past until the support gets there. So when you consider those are teams that are near the top end, Loco, what's mad is Mark's hit it on the head there. Obviously, nobody designs the team to be a late game team. That means that you've just failed every other aspect of the game and it just doesn't work. And then you've got on stage and you realize it doesn't work. So let's just do what the only thing that's working, which at the moment is pick scaling champions and get everyone on comfort champions. So Hots are on top tank, Froggen on a control mage. Yeah, these are all what they're trying to do. But even within that caveat of like one-dimensional, you know what? That one dimension is working. It's not terrible, is it? Like, I'll tell you, yeah, they probably shouldn't be able to beat Cloud9 if they play them. Team Liquid. I don't know about TSM because obviously that game was a bit close. But, in theory, they shouldn't be the top 4 teams, but every other team's right up there to potentially be beaten. And in fact, I'll say one thing for Golden Guardians, which is a lot of the other teams have an even worse identity. Like, you go and look at 100 Thieves, they have no fucking identity. Like, you ask them where they're going to win the game and with which champions, they couldn't even tell you. Like, I admit, the Golden Guardians setup is a pretty bad one, but within that context, it works.
Yeah, it works. I'll give you that. It definitely works, and they do have a clear identity in who they are. I just don't think that identity has a future for the team. Like, they're not making worlds. They're not really going to improve, and this is a very bad box to be in, and they really need to break that box. So it's a temporary...
Well, here's the wild thing, Loco. When you look at this team now, I know obviously Contractz was the legacy player who was there the last year. But, like, when you consider how, like, overall, Optic is not a good team, but somehow they have all these early advantages, and they do have 2 really good junglers. Whenever they play either of those junglers, Dardoch or Meteos, they're both really good. If you put either of those players on this GGS team, they'd be way better.
I think if
overnight.
There's a couple teams that could use either of them.
Half the league. I think
that's half could use it, yeah.
Of course. Like, half the shit about what I'm saying about LCS, that's the only reason I think Optic's even in the position they're in. Because they've actually, what's mad is they've somehow got 2 of the best players. There's, like, rotation.
Yeah. So, the thing about Meteos and Dardoch are they're not easy players to work with. It's not plug and play. I think if you put Meteos or Dardoch into this team, they might break down. They might not work how you think they will work. Like, Meteos...
No, but what I think would be good is exactly that. If this team lacks, like, shot calling and stuff, let those guys do what they want to do. We'll follow them.
Maybe. Mark, what do you think? Do you think, like, putting Meteos or Dardoch would upgrade Golden Guardians? I think it would introduce synergy problems, and it would introduce internal problems.
I mean, that's how it feels with any of the potential, like, Dardoch Meteos moves as we get closer to trade deadline, which people almost never move on. But, like, I think if it depends, like, what your goal is, because we're saying Golden Guardians has, like, this cap and ceiling on, like, this play style where, yeah, you'll beat the teams who fucking throw the game because you're on Victor and they fuck up and engage.
They're basically like a first-round playoff team. That's about all they're going to be.
Right. So, like, if you have higher aspirations and you want to take a stab at it, like, yes, get Dardoch. He is a better Contractz at this point in terms of, like, a volatile early game player. And then maybe he gets you enough leads that you win more of these games as opposed to just having to rely on the enemy team messing up later. So I would probably risk going for it. I know Enero has worked with Dardoch before, so maybe he can make that happen. I think Meteos is probably the better of the 2 options. If you are going for more of like a mid-late game style, I think Meteos can hopefully help out more there. But like either one of those should be an upgrade for a couple of these teams, and you're not really risking that much. You're risking like potentially not making playoffs as your worst case scenario, which, hey, there's no relegation. Great, go for it.
And what a sad state to be in. Also, one thing that Doran said I do want to touch on, and I want to grab Mark's opinion on. Other regions, and when you listen to interviews and when you talk to coaches and players from other regions, they consider engaging super important. They think in the current meta, whoever engages first and whoever engages correctly wins 90% of the fights. And they put a lot of priority and tools.
Nobody told the LCS.
And they try so hard to make sure they have priority lanes and they have good engages in their draft, and they'll forego late game to get those tools. Where I feel like it's a complete reverse in NA, where they're like, who needs engage? Who needs priority? Like, better late game wins, dude.
I feel like I'm not quite sure I 100% agree. Like even that Golden Guardians team comp with Froggen like being the late game victor, it's like you have Callista and Alistar, which is like super early game engage focus. Urgot can follow up. Contractz potentially start it. Like it is all things considered in the victor, like a decently early game team, and I think a lot of teams have good engage. It's just that they're really bad at executing on it. So I think people know that they should have good engage. There's just no strong, like, other than Tom Kench, I can't think of like a good protection champion in the game right now. So like I think everyone knows you kind of have to go engage. And like I'm just looking at the team comps in a lot of these games, like a ton of them have like a shitload of engage. Like you have C9 versus CLG, it's Sejuani, Sivir, Alistar, with also having a Silas and Urgot. Like everyone has engaged in team comps. It's just they're so bad about coordination and like target selection thing.
Okay. I do think it's more of that where it's not that they're not valuing engage, just the engage is done in NALCS is god awful and very, very rarely coordinated well.
Yeah, I think it's hard to find a game where there is like one of the team comps isn't double hard engage or like a hard engage comp, and if not, both team comps are.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I think we're just really struggling with it.
Before we move on to the next team, I do think we can talk playoff picture a little before moving on. I think there's like a really, really clear top four in TSM. Or let's go in order. Team Liquid, C9, TSM, and FlyQuest. I think those are clear-cut top four, and you're not going to really drop out of the top four, and no team's going to really break into the top four. What do you guys think?
I pretty much agree with that. I think FlyQuest has a little. I think we've said it all split along. Like FlyQuest feels like they have a bit of a ceiling. So like if some team really figures it out, maybe they can climb past them. But like that seems like a team with a lot of really positive attitude guys, and they're not gonna like tilt if things start going like if they get an O2 weekend like this week happened for them. So I think that is probably the top four.
Like the thing with FlyQuest is I could actually see them potentially like it being in a race for the spot that they're in, like 4th, 5th, whatever they would be at, because like they actually look to me like, because they were good in basically week 1. For me, they're what I call like a placeholder top team. Like they just had their shit figured out from the beginning, and everyone else was still figuring it out. Yeah. So the problem with that is, like as you're saying, like they've kind of been the same level the whole LCS. Like it's been pretty solid, and if you look at the lineup, it's very good for the context of who they have as players. But they're not going to win the LCS. They're not going to the LCS finals. I don't know win. I mean, there's not many teams that could probably win a playoff series against when you consider the way the seeding would work. Like, you know, it's probably just a team that's like. I can put it so I don't see a world in which they're going to go top 3. But the big problem I have is like, for me, it's only Team Liquid and Cloud9 are really good. Like I know TSM is ranked there, and yeah, they have won a lot of games in the last few weeks. Some of the games they're winning don't look very convincing though, Loco. Like the amount of time, like I said, those weird, like almost rookie errors that like Smoothie and Sven have made, and they've each made them separately in lane as well. And these are players who in lane should know exactly what they're doing. Like Smoothie, that's the whole thing this guy's like famous for. And then you think about, I'm trying to think who else is, like Acadian's been pretty decent. I think he's stepped his level up a bit. Bjergsen's still good, but not the best. The problem I have with their team is, I actually think people are imagining a higher ceiling than exists for that team. Like, I think everyone else is doing this, where they're like, right, TSM's getting the shit together, you know, they're getting better week on week. By the time the end of the split comes, you know, everyone will be at full power. They'll be ready. I think actually they're near the level I expect them to be at now. Like, I think they've fixed some of the problems, but they don't look like that coordinated a team, to be honest.
Let's pick between FlyQuest and TSM. Which one do you want to go into in depth more?
Let's do TSM.
Okay. So for TSM, I agree. Like Sven and Smoothie definitely have been having their off games. Like the one you mentioned versus FlyQuest, where they both got solo killed in the lane itself, was god awful. But they've definitely been improving, and I trust in TSM coaching staff so much. I know it's a lot of personal bias with Tony and Lust both being friends and someone I worked with in the past, but I think they really understand the game, and they understand like esports and team culture and how to get everyone together. And yeah, I just can't imagine like Tony doing a bad job of getting people together. And TSM has done a good job of constantly looking good or looking better week after week after week. And they're 4-0 in their last 4 games. So nothing bad to say about TSM in terms of their improvement. For their ceiling, they're going to be the same team again. I do think they will be a Bjerg-centric team. The big question is how much can Acadian and how much can Broken Blade break that mold of being that Bjergsen team that is kind of I would say like a better version of Froggen, a more versatile version of Froggen, but still very focused on team fighting and still very focused around playing around mid. Broken Blade has been impressive, and from watching TSM Legend, it seems like he has his own voice. It seems like Acadian isn't getting run over. But when playoff comes, will Bjergsen knows how to win, and Bjergsen knows how to carry through playoffs. Will he be able to relinquish some of the control onto Broken Blade and Acadian? That's my question. I think TSM will get better and better. The comment you had about their ceiling is going to have a lot to do with Bjergsen somewhat relinquishing control to coaching staff and to Broken Blade and Acadian.
The thing. Sorry. Do you want to talk?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think their ceiling should be high because I think people see Sven and they see Bjergsen and they go, okay, 2 monster late game carries. The thing is, a lot of what we're talking about with like engages and playmaking in the mid to late game, it's not decided by those 2 players. They're the ones who kind of follow up, and that means that it's their kind of quote unquote worst players who are going to need to be the ones making these like mid and late game engagements with Acadian, Smoothie, and Broken Blade. And they're the most active early game TSM we've seen in a long time, which I think is really like positive, and you trust the coaching staff to fix like the shot calling. But I don't know if like Bjerg and Sven will get to shine in mid to late game if like these other members don't become really good at like engaging together, which I don't think they are right now. Like Acadian and Broken Blade have looked better, but they're still somewhat disjointed, and like they lost their top 2v2s versus FlyQuest pretty hard in their games and stuff like that, and they're clearly trying to play around Broken Blade, but a lot of the times that's actually not where the wins are coming from, other than that one Team Liquid game where it was
the Jax game.
Yeah.
All right.
Actually, a lot of the LCS games I've seen as well is like the first 10 minutes is people just ganking top lane all day long. It's just everyone going top lane. I mean, literally almost every game has a fucking Urgot in it anyway. Like, it's always just Urgot versus who, like Sion, Aatrox, and then basically whoever has the Urgot is just getting a gank on the other guy all the time. It's like it's actually mental how predictable the league is.
Another huge question for TSM and going forward is what's going to happen with Grig. So there's this thread on TSM subreddit. Apparently this guy made a bet with his friend. If TSM did something, that he would have to buy the Grig jersey. And so he bought a Grig jersey and he wore it to LCS. And he took pictures with the rest of the team, and Andy was there. And Andy was like, oh, damn, nice jersey, dude. You're going to be really happy next week. So he posted it, and then now TSM subreddit is going crazy saying, oh, Grig is going to play next week. How do you guys feel about potentially Grig returning, if it's going to be helpful for TSM or if it's going to take actually more time to get the synergy working together and all that?
I don't think Acadian has been like super duper standout, but I like that he is really aggressive in the early game, even though these plays are not like 100% working out all the time. I think we ran his stats on Sunday. I think he had like the highest forward percent of a jungler, which means like he's evading a lot and playing on the other side of the map. High kill participation, stuff like that. High kills and assists. So like, I like that Acadian has made their early game a lot more aggressive, even if it doesn't work out all the time, because that's something I feel like TSM has struggled with, was like always looking for the 100% play, and like you're not going to find those, so like go make some mistakes. So I don't really love the idea of Grig coming back, even though he might be a little bit more stable of a player. I don't necessarily think that's what they need. And apparently both of them talk a lot. Like last year they said Grig was very communicative in the season, so I don't think they're losing anything in the shot calling, or like gaining or losing shot calling.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good move if they bring him back now, like partway through the season, because like first of all, I never really thought Grig was that great on him TSM last year, so I'd have to see an improvement. Like, Arcadian hasn't been a great jungler either, but I would definitely agree with Mark. Being proactive at least brought something to this team. Like, I think that helped Broken Beard loads as well, because at least he has someone who's playing up all the time. Like, he can come and join him when he comes off lane. I think there's a lot of benefit there. The downside is, like, put it this way, if TSM believed everything you just said, Loco, why would they change players? If they believe all the shit you just said, like everything's getting better, they're going to work on the comms, you know, people just do things, they're going to be challenging. Oh, let's just change a player out of nowhere. Like, no one does that. You do that if there's something wrong.
I think Andy is a very player first, because he also started out as a player, and he's also been very, like, he's been very friendly with the player, and he's always taking care of his player. So he probably maybe not feel in depth to Grig. That's a pretty strong word, but he feels there's certain fairness. Like, Grig earned his starter spot, and we designated Grig the starter, and then he had an injury. So to be fair to Grig, once he gets better, they're going to try to work him in. But I do think it's going to be towards the detrimental of TSM, for TSM trying to be fair to Grig.
Like, I think another big problem they have in that team is, so when you look at the team on paper, when you have Bjergsen, Smoothie, and Sven, just stop right there. If you tell me I've got those three players, fucking ass, you have a pretty good team then, right? Look at my bot lane and mid. Mate, that bot lane is not. You might as well just remove. If you did the old LS claim, I know it's almost no one's ever actually tested out, but if you removed the nameplates, you would never guess these players were Sven and Smoothie's Loco. I'm guarantee you. If I could take a game that you definitely haven't watched and show you them playing, these aren't the players that have earned those names as being some of the best players in their region.
Oh.
Like, Sven just looks totally disconnected from the team. Like I said, some very weird misplays. I can't even believe how many misplays I've seen Smoothie make. Yeah. I used to rate this guy as well when he was on C9. I actually thought, like, how the fuck is TSM convinced them to give him this player?
Mm-hmm. So go ahead, Mark.
The Smoothie thing's weird because he's so volatile right now. Like, he'll have like the TL game where like he had a really good roam and his roam timing still seemed great, and then like he has the game where he crushes CLG's bot lane with Thresh, and then he has these other games where like he puts his Braum shield up randomly against Ornn and gets his dual lane killed, or like the FlyQuest game he made some mistakes as well. So like his laning seems to have completely, it's almost like he's focused, I don't know if this is true, but it feels like he's focusing more on like shot calling and proactivity in the early game and like trying to coordinate stuff with Acadian maybe, but like yeah, the laning is definitely become suspect.
I have no idea why Smoothie's playing badly. I always rated Smoothie highly too. I wouldn't say badly, but inconsistent. He's been very on and off. Last week's been better.
Playmaker.
Yeah.
Like, he can definitely still like land a hook on Thresh or something. But
yeah, he's been inconsistent. Let's say that. But for Zben, one thing I will defend Zben is he's always playing the weak lane. So usually TSM actually goes into 1-3-1 and they play the map really widely, and Zben is always on the weak side. So usually it's Bjerg mid lane and Broken Blade playing the strong lane where he's getting a lot of the jungle and support help in terms of getting vision and playing up on that side. And Zben is always on the weak side of the map without vision and getting pushed in and versus their strong side. So I do think there is logical reasoning why Zben is getting caught out a lot more and Zben is dying a lot more in side lanes because he's playing the weak side. But yeah, it is kind of weird to see Zben and Smoothie struggling where you expect them to be the really solid basis for TSM.
I actually think in general, just as a general comment, the bot lanes in NA are fucking bad this season, mate. There's very few that actually look strong. Like, so many of them are just like, some of them even have, like, in theory, two players that are good, but it's like it's almost like they don't even know they're in the same lane together. Like, some of them are just terrible. So I'll apply the same logic to TSM I said with Golden Guardians earlier. As much as I've said all of that about TSM, they're still better than the majority of the other teams in the LCS. So they could actually keep doing exactly the same shit they're doing now and probably still be in the semi-finals of the playoffs. It's not unreasonable at all.
And I don't think they have a ceiling. I don't think they have a big ceiling concern. Like, I think they could catch up with a team like C9. It's hard to say. C9 looks really good too, but like I don't think they're like substantially worse. That like if they hit their stride and C9 slumps, they couldn't overtake them for something playoffs.
Okay. Let's go to FlyQuest. I'm super excited for this team. So as much as like we shout on them a little, so I'll break down a little bit of what FlyQuest is about. They actually have pretty decent early game. I think Lucas's pathing or Santorin's pathing is one of the best. Santorin's such an underrated player. I know people are gonna meme me about the 9.5 mechanic thing. Santorin's really smart.
I forgot about that. Holy shit. Sorry, go on.
Really smart.
Okay, you know what? Since you brought it up, let's just have a quick sidebar on this.
Okay.
Loco, and let's see whether we can finally get some fucking sense to your head on this. Because here's the context, Mark, right? A lot of people mistakenly think that Loco said that Santorin had 9.5 out of 10 mechanics, right? Now, on the surface, that already sounds like a pretty bold statement. No, it was worse than that. The context I said specifically was, if 10 is Faker at his prime, whereas Santorin, he said 9.5. So in his mind, like the difference between Santorin mechanics and Faker, 0.5. Like, if you're going to make a statement that's like, that's almost designed. Like, if you were trolling, I'd say fair enough. But you believe it as well. So that's all I want to know, really, Loco, is where's the disconnect between you and us? Like, what do you really mean by that? That you're not getting, because you're not getting it across, by the way, by saying 9.5. You're just making yourself sound like an idiot.
No.
And then everyone goes and watches a Santorin game and goes, what the fuck is Loco talking about? So explain what you were saying. Like, what's the impetus behind why you rating that aspect so highly?
Well, no. So I definitely wouldn't rate him 9.5 out of 10 compared to Faker nowadays. And also the context is really different from back then. But even back then, I was definitely wrong. And I think that was a bad take. But I wanted to defend my former player who was getting shit on a lot.
You went too far the other way, though, didn't you?
Yeah.
You blew it up too much.
Yeah, I blew it up too much. But Santorin was extremely underrated. And I still think to this day, he is really, really underrated. I think he's a little bit worse than Xmithy. But he's very flexible. Santorin plays everything, plays all the carries, plays all the tank, has good pathing, and shot calls well. Santorin's biggest problem is he's really too nice, and he's not forceful. So he knows what the team should be doing a lot of times. So he says something like, hey, we're fine topside. Viper, you can keep split pushing. And Viper's like, are you sure? Are you sure? I'm going to teleport. And instead of Santorin going like, no, keep split pushing, he allows Viper to teleport, where he should have a stronger voice and he should have a bigger voice on the team, and he doesn't, and he knows the right thing, but he never forces it. And like a personality trait is really hard to fix, and it's something he's been struggling with a lot and trying to fix for a long time. But going back into FlyQuest, very good early game team, has no idea what to do mid game. They're able to build leads, like both time versus TSMC9.
Yeah, okay.
Able to build leads.
It's almost like if you connected those two things together, there'd be almost something starting to emerge there. So the jungler doesn't talk enough and doesn't communicate his really good ideas. Somehow, Mark, they can't get out of the early game into the mid game.
No,
they're having a problem transitioning at some point in time, you know.
Maybe someone needs to step up and speak more.
Here's the thing, Loco. I'll tell you what we need to do. I'll solve this problem for you. I'll just get you the hotline to Froggen's cell phone. And if he just tells you all the brilliant ideas he had but didn't say in the game, then there'll be no problem. You'll know that he's a really good player. So, you know, if only everyone could have that mad caveat added. Because, by the way, when you say that, that's not a small problem for a jungler to have. Like, sure, if you have amazing lanes, you can maybe get away with it. Like, they know they're usually right, or they tell you the right call. You just listen to them. You're kind of their dog, but you do a good job of it. Yeah, that can work. But first of all, it's not really the sort of team he has now. And then secondly, there's a reason why it's actually famous that junglers are like considered the most toxic players in League of Legends.
Or the most vocal, yeah.
Because junglers just spend their whole life getting blamed. So as a result, the best junglers aren't the ones who rage out. No, that's too far the other way. The best junglers are some Han Solo type motherfucker who just doesn't give a fuck. And he just rolls up when he's ready, and then he wins the whole fucking day. And then he's like, right, and I'm out. And then that's it. Those are the best junglers.
I mean, I think Santorin's getting there, and it's a big problem. It's a problem that's been plaguing him for years, and it is a problem we see clearly on FlyQuest. Great early game, gets lost mid game, makes bad decisions mid game. Not just Santorin. I'm not putting the blame on Santorin, but overall as a team, they're making those mistakes. But I guess I am putting a lot of blame on Santorin, because I know Santorin knows the answers, and he's just not speaking up enough, and he's just not shot calling forcefully enough to actually get the team on the same page.
Because that's, to me, one of the problems with this team is, like, this is a team full of people that are like, I'm sure on paper they're all like, hey, they're a nice guy, but most of them are decent or slightly above average at League of Legends. But it's like, like that's why I don't see them as having the big ceiling. Like, a great example would be Wild Turtle has already just been Wild Turtle this season. He has already won games, and he's already done some ridiculous shit that, like, it's just Wild Turtle, and like that's in his DNA. But that's actually a positive for a team like this. At least he's a guy who makes plays. He's the decisive player in that sense. So, like, you need some of those. Like, it's like my biggest problem with this team is, like I said, I think they're the team that's going to get caught up on. Like, I think they haven't done anything wrong. I think even if they end up finishing like 5th place and they go out in the first round of the playoffs, So what? You did a great job with the roster. Like, I didn't expect anything from this team. So I'll still say props, but I don't see them... Like, if they're in the semi-finals of LCS, who are they going to beat? Is there anyone they can beat in the semi-finals? Probably not, right?
I think
beat
they can
TSL, Cloud9. Could they beat TSM maybe?
I think they could beat TSM if they're not playing well. Because I think FlyQuest guys, all split long, have had their shit figured out for the most part from a comp perspective and like how they want to play the game. Whereas like I could see a world where TSM gets lost and they're like, pick scaling only because we're losing early games to them. And like I don't know. I could see something that happen, but that's about it.
All right. Yo, Mark, spicy question for you. Broken Blade or Viper?
Viper.
Explain.
I think I've seen a little bit more out of him so far. And he's been asked to do more. Like, Broken Blade more times has fucked up. Like, they messed up 2v2s between him and Acadian. There was, like, I think it was the 100 Thieves game where, like, they just got destroyed in the 2v2s, which they ended up winning that game, I think. But it was, like, abysmal. Happened again this week. I think Viper played better. There's been a couple games where, like, Broken Blade hasn't been the carry that, like, he's built up to be. And he has had some times where he is, but I think Viper has done better at that position and would, if you swap the players, be performing better on TSM.
Doran?
I think it's a bit of a wash between the two. Like, I can see
It's
what you
close.
mean. Like I'll put it this way. Considering Broken Blade was the person everyone hyped super duper, at the moment, Viper looks like he has more potential, but I can't entirely blame Broken Blade because obviously they're not even playing with the original jungler they were supposed to have in the lineup. They haven't really played around Broken Blade particularly well. Like, a lot of the time he just plays 1v1 basically, so I think he's done an all right job. It's hard to gauge on that team though, because here's the problem: on the two teams, you have totally different expectations for them. Like on TSM, especially because they've won so many games. That's why I say the LCS looks so underwhelming. TSM is the third ranked team, and it's like if you took away the win-loss record, I'd guess they were like sixth based on how they were playing. Like, they're all right, but they're certainly not. They're not blowing anyone away. Like, there's nobody watching TSM games now. Like, holy fuck, get me to Rift Rivals as fast as possible. Like, no, everyone's going, thank God that shit's months away. Like, this is not a good look, Loco. So I'll give it to Viper as a slight nod there, because at least I would agree. He's done more. Champion pool looks pretty fucking legit. He's also a guy who's no expectations from at all in his team. He's actually emerged to be a pretty solid player in a team that basically was just supposed to be like Poor Belter and Wild Turtle. That was supposed to be it, you know? So I think it's been pretty legit. Well, definitely a nice find.
I'd go with Viper also, but I will preface it with it saying, if Viper was on TSM, I'm not sure if we're going to get the same kind of result. It's super hard being on TSM. So much pressure. A lot of huge lanes.
Spicy question for you.
Okay.
Dorkler or just another cannon minion?
Jesus Christ.
Why the random has flame on
At least
Dokla?
a cannon minion can fucking go in the lane, right? And just start shooting stuff.
Because cannon minions can't TP.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god. But going back onto Viper versus Broken Blade, Viper gets no credit. I think Huni did a really good thing in terms of mentioning Viper for his top lane tier list and putting him second. But Viper gets no credit for what he's accomplished. I think.
Where did Huni put himself on that list?
I'm not sure. But
I think he put himself zero. He said like he was like putting tiers, and like first was Licorice, second was Viper, something that he said he was 0 or something.
Well, we agree on that one, but not in the way he meant, of course. My ranking of Huni also 0, bizarrely, but we'll get to that later, I'm sure.
Yeah, but yeah, I think Viper is also super underrated. Dude, FlyQuest is just all underrated players. Everyone's just underrated on FlyQuest. Unless like they do something big, like beat TLC9 or TSM in playoffs, I do think they're going to go underrated, and this is such quite of a team.
Here's what I hope happens is if you've been watching this season of LCS and you are the other teams in the league, well, we all know the hardest spots to fill are the domestic spots. That's why at the moment the whole economy is like, right, everyone's like got fucking calendars with whenever each player becomes an NA resident, so you don't have that problem of getting the NA players. So at the moment, right, if you need players, they're already on this team. Like this team, if you took them and broke them up and put them in the other squads, it makes so many teams stronger.
Imagine TSM gets Viper and they free up an import slot.
Yeah, great move.
Yeah.
Why not, right?
I think I think it's weird that they're so underrated. Like I tried, like Santorin, I think was a third team All Pro or second team All Pro last year. for LCS. He was like everyone's been saying for a long time. He's one of the best junglers in the league, but it feels like there's still no hype behind that statement, despite the fact that it's unanimous. I think at this point that you would say he's like second or third best jungler. But no one gets excited about it, and I feel like that's how it is with a lot of these players.
They do have kind of a quiet team though, right? They don't really have like the big personalities that are popping off.
That's true too. They're not crushing headlines on subreddit on Mondays and Tuesdays.
Like I have to say, in this particular team, everyone, because I know for some reason everyone does this. Every single time Pobelter goes to Worlds, it's like people get that like Men in Black thing that just deletes your memory, and they go, right, all I've seen is him at Worlds. He's fucking garbage. Get him out of the LCS. And it's like, if this team in particular doesn't show you that Pobelter is like a really good LCS mid laner, it's like, I don't know what would ever convince you, because where's all his help? Like, you can't say like, oh, he already had double lift. He doesn't have fucking anything like double lift now. Oh, but he had this other player. He doesn't have any of those players. He's in theory, he's the big name on this team, and he's doing really well.
Oh, another thing. I don't want to shit on Gabe, their coach, but I heard his name be up for coach of the split. I think that's incorrect. I think Gabe is a good coach, and he's shown good coaching, but this team is super easy to coach, and I think this team almost coaches itself with how much veterans it has. I never want to take credit away from a coach, but...
Man alive.
What? You don't think this team would be easy to coach?
That's what everyone was hating on you for like 2 years saying. That's why no one gives you any credit for those LCS titles, because they're all just like, well, anyone could just fucking told Bjergsen and just carry the game. It's like, and then, you know, Loco, we could all ask you know, Loco, I'll just go ahead and tell you, son,
sure.
In your face, right? What no one else will tell you.
Sure.
Most people think your coaching was patting Bjergsen on the back when he finished 1v5 in, and then going in the other room, pulling up Kakao Talk, using your native fucking language of Korean, going, oh, that's all the shit people in Korea told me, right? Here's it in English. And then they were like, right, there's your salary, now get the fuck out. And then you were like, hello, female streamer. You want to go for KB? People think that's what you did, son. I know you didn't. Believe it or not, I actually have to bloody stand up for you because people go too far the other way and wreck you.
I don't want to make a long segment on what I did on TSM or what I didn't do on TSM.
Yeah, it won't be very long, so don't worry. Just make it quick.
Oh my god. TSM wasn't beating C9 before I got there. And TSM macro definitely changed once I got there. And our fundamentals got so much better once I got there.
I'm just going to say TSM was not beating Cloud9 before High's fucking long collapsed inside, and then he was never the same as a person ever since. But, you know, it could just be you. My bad. Could just be you that was called. I thought that was a pretty life-altering moment myself, but you might just want to skip over that. Kind of like when Double Lift like single-handedly eliminated you from that double elimination tournament that you only played you in once. You know that one, yeah. Anyway, keep going. My bad. I didn't want to make it.
Go ahead, Mark. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, didn't his lung collapse after you guys beat them in summer?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
It happened before All-Stars, you cretin, which is between the spring split and the summer split. Why are you asking the esports historian when something happened, you little pleb who doesn't even know shit?
Wait.
Why? How could Link have played for him then? Because this is before Link Stunzo Manifesto, you cretin.
No,
you joined in the summer of Season 4.
2013.
The split,
2013.
And All-Stars... You didn't join in 2013, you absolute cretin. In 2013, you were still playing for Najin Shield.
It was definitely 2014.
I know your own life better than you.
Okay.
I'll start writing your fucking diary. We'll get
because you guys got Glebe in 2014 summer too, right? That's like when the change happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we picked up Special on Curse 2014 summer. So you brought Glebe in. It was a struggle. You switched to Lust Boy.
Yes.
And that was after High's lung collapse. Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, see, that's the thing, Loco. Don't come at me with the facts, son. I got the facts all day long. I got that. I hold that shit down.
Oh my god.
Like all those streamers who don't fucking tell tale on you. But anyway, back to what we were talking about. What were we talking about before that? It was about FlyQuest.
Gabe. Yeah. Do you guys think it's? Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
No, but what was your reason though as to why? It's that you think the team's kind of like they're just easy personalities to coach.
They're very easy personalities, and there's no lack of knowledge.
But surely he still coaches the game itself, though. He does the draft and tells them how to play in the game.
I think, okay, how can I say this? I still support Gabe, and I think Gabe is a great coach, but I think it's so wrong to put Gabe up as coach of the split in the situation that he's in. FlyQuest is doing better than what a lot of people thought, but I think people just underrated the roster. Do you think his name should be up for coach of the split?
It's interesting because I also think St. Vicious did a similar thing in summer last year with this team, which was pretty similar. I mean, they had Keen, who's a pretty easy to work with guy, and Flame, who I've heard is just kind of weird and like out there, but like not like an asshole or anything. So like Saint had them, and they all did really well in summer, and then they kind of surprised again in spring, where people just don't rate FlyQuest as a team very highly. So it is hard to say. The team has done better than people think. To Loco's point, there's no one on that team who's like the asshole who's gonna like stir things up and make behind the scenes problems on the team. But I still think they've done a good job of like working Viper and his pick into the team. And maybe that's just Viper knowing 100% how he wants to do it. But I would think Gabe is helping with that, like getting those things to work.
The question isn't is Gabe a good coach or Gabe a bad coach? Because my opinion in that is Gabe is a good coach. The question is, should Gabe's name be up for Coach of the Split? Should he be one of the people that we're looking at for Coach of the Split?
I guess I would answer with another question of who would you put over him then? Because
Tony Reaper.
Tony Reaper. You put Tony and Reaper. Tony, I can see, especially since they're rallying a little bit. Reaper, they integrated Niski, and but it's like a lot of what we're seeing out of C9 was stuff that he's gotten credit for, like last split. Like he saved the team. Sneaky's still one of the best North American players of all time, and Licorice is great. And like the thing that he did this split was integrate Niski. So like it's hard for me I think it's close with Reaper, and Tony is probably the other good candidate, but they all feel really close to me right now. And I'm not giving it to Kane.
Here's the big problem, Loco, is what will, if you say that more, I haven't actually seen this, but if you say a lot of people are saying that like Gabe should be a potential coach of the split, that actually is a very, very obvious storyline, because if you know anything about how coach of the year works in most American sports, they don't give it to the person who's on the best team. They typically give it to the person who had the biggest turnaround. Like if you joined, I don't know, I'll make up a team. So if you join, like, here's a great example. So this season, okay, the Packers weren't a very good team. Whoever becomes their coach, if he next season makes them like fucking second seed in their conference, he'll probably actually get like coach of the year, because people will be like, look at the turnaround, it must have been him, even though that can be fallacious logic, obviously, because like maybe you changed players, or maybe the players matured, there's a lot of factors. So in the same way as in the past, I felt like that's why people gave mad props initially to Zix, actually, because when Doublelift left, they thought that team was going to be terrible. And then obviously it was literally winning the LCS. So everyone was like, he must be the best coach, which isn't really, that's really more of a narrative than it is an analysis of his coaching. If they told me he was the best coach because like they showed me some drafts and, look at this clever, the way he got an extra pick there, or they showed me in game, look how he improved the macro from week to week, that would make sense. But really, they're just using like the sexy storyline. Well, here's the funny thing. You know who the other obvious candidate along that storyline narrative would have been if if this weekend's results had gone differently? Would have been Weldon. Because look where CLG was. Again, CLG, another team with a lineup that no one thought was going to be good. They were a fucking bust early on. They were actually, remember, they were on like a mad upwards, like an uptick up until like the weekend. So absolutely, for the same logic, people would have said, well, and by the way, if they really had actually have won those games, I probably wouldn't even be totally against that. Like, it's a pretty bad lineup. I don't think they should be good. They managed to get some wins out of it. The problem is, if you go like coach of the split, that's more like cool storyline of the split. Like coach of the split should really just be whoever you really think is the best coach.
Okay. So then maybe I'm more okay with Gabe getting coach of the split if it is more about the storyline thing, and I do see where he is getting the credit for it, and it is a good story of the upswing.
I think it'd be the kind of thing too where it'd be totally in line with how coach of the split has gone in NALCS over the course of it.
That's the reason that, like Dylan Falco won it or whatever, because he just took like
oh my God,
the Immortals team and made him number one. And before that, obviously Immortals was nobody, right? So it's like, oh, brand new teams made it to the top. It's like, I think that was more Hooney and Rainover, but fair enough, give him the award. Loco, the irony of this is that storyline is actually why funnily enough, the one few time they didn't really apply it was by that storyline, because it's a very powerful one in all sports with like casual fans. That actually means, by that logic, you should have won it in the first split you were with Team Liquid for the same reason. Take a load of rookies, almost. Well, I mean, you can't count the playoffs, but you made them a playoff team. They actually were looking good. They were beating top teams. By the same narrative, you would have won it.
I would say I was robbed, but Tony did I think I did a great job. Tony just did an excellent job that split. I think on an average split, I would have won it that split, but just Tony killed it that split. So I mean, I don't really feel that bad about it. I feel bad that Dylan won instead of Tony, but I don't feel that bad that I didn't win it because I think Tony deserved it so much, that split. All right, let's pick another team. Let's go down. Let's go to some of the shitter teams.
Well, let's go to Optic then, since I already staked my claim that now you know how I feel about Dokla. In fact, you know what? There needs to be more. This guy is one of the worst top laners I have ever seen play in the LCS. Like, it's outrageous how bad he is. Like, first of all, the amount of times he's just 3/4 of the way up in the lane when his jungler's in like the fucking base or like the bottom side of the map. It's like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, I'd love to get this guy in my solo queue.
I have to disagree with that because there have been some atrocious top lane players in the history of League of Legends.
Oh, obviously, yeah, that element of the hyperbole.
You're talking like velocity level, like you got Inox people, you got like those.
Helios' brother. Helios' brother. Yeah. No, that's Avalon. Paragon was the AD. Avalon was Helios' brother.
Yes, you're right. Okay.
Yeah,
and I guess Seraph at one point in time, sure.
He would
a couple that have been worse.
He would make top 5 of the worst LCS top laners ever. Not
He's
the worst top 5.
At the moment, that way.
To be fair to Dokla, you can win games with him. He's not so terrible. They Optic last split won a number of games.
Yeah, but in the current top lane meta though, put it that way, in the current top lane meta, he's dead weight.
Yeah,
like, it's not working at all for him at the moment.
Yeah, he's the worst top laner in the league right now.
Okay.
And in fact, as I said before, when you look at how good their jungling is, it's so noticeable. Like, they're getting all these early advantages. They have a jungler that's going top lane all the time. It's like, it's just depressing. And then I've seen way too many team fight scenarios where that guy just did really stupid re-engages and died over and over again. And it's not like it's the only problem in Optic. They've got plenty of fucking problems. They've got a non-existent bot lane as well. In fact, you know the maddest thing is, Loco? Like, okay, it's not really a surprise that Dardoch and Meteos are good players. Fair enough, we already knew that. Crown actually ends up looking like one of the best players on this team. He himself makes loads of mistakes, gets fucking caught out loads of times, looks like he's disconnected from the team. But at least he actually plays like the original really good Crown. He plays really aggressive, he goes for 1v1 fights, he actually kills people in team fights. The jungle and the mid are solid in that team. I would have to guess, by the way, again, this is speculation, I would guess their team's pretty well coached. If I consider the turnaround they made at the end of last year, and I consider what they've done with this garbage lineup, winning some games, and getting so many early game leads, I feel like a mixture of like the junglers and the coach have to be the reason why.
Yeah, I mean, also Crown, I think, was a very good pickup that no one gave them credit for and that people shout on them for. I'll take first blame. I think Crown was going to be god-awful on Optic, but Crown can't communicate at all. I think Dardoch said it perfectly in an interview I did with him. Crown is always doing the right thing, be at the right spots, but he's not saying anything. And it shows in the games. He's doing the right things and he's like at the right spots, but no one's ready to play with him because he's not communicating. So
that's why he's getting caught out, mate. Like, the times I see him get caught out, if I was to like freeze frame it and really look at everyone else's positions, I don't think he's such an idiot. He just doesn't know. I think he literally just assumes that like the support's supposed to know to come up and like be ready for me in the brush when I'm going for this 1v1. It's like they don't, mate. They don't know these things.
Well, the other thing too is like in interviews, I think both Meteos and Big have talked about how both of them kind of want to be the main shot callers on the team, and like they just clash and don't see the game the same way. So, like, even if Crown could understand English perfectly, I don't think he'd be getting like great direction from the team either, because it sounds like it's a mess in English too a little bit. So like you have a guy who doesn't understand the language that they're arguing in and coming up with disagreements in. So like in some ways it might even be better that he doesn't know what the fuck they're saying.
Huge question regarding Optic that we have to talk about. Meteos or Dardoch, where is the future of this team? Or let's not even talk about the future. What should they do for the rest of the split?
Well, the mad thing is, dude, I have to say, the actual rotation works because they're such different players. It's like, depending on what you want to do, yeah, go for it. Like, Meteos still looks... What's amazing about Meteos is playing in like the lesser teams, like when he was in P1 and now when he's in this team, just shows the quality this guy has. Like, this guy is the sort of guy you would, if you were playing solo queue, this is exactly the jungler you want. Like, it doesn't matter if like the early game goes bad or someone dies, etc. He still knows what he's doing at all times. He always has a plan. There's always something logical to what he's doing at that point in time. People can say all the side intangible shit, like, oh, he's a bad teammate, or, you know, he's too stubborn or arrogant. It's like, I don't care about any of that shit if you can do what he can do in the game. There's not many junglers in NA as good as him. And then Dardoch's Dardoch. Like, you saw in that game when he was playing Jace, the guy's a fucking monster, mate.
I think the thing that's weird about Optic is it feels like they have, outside maybe Dokla, like enough pieces that they should be able to put together a lineup that works well. Like, maybe Dardoch doesn't care as much about like how the team is playing with like tempo and this kind of stuff that Meteos seems to get caught up on. And so like if you run Dardoch with Big, it works better. Or maybe you run Meteos with Gate, where Gate's not as much of a shot calling personality. Like it feels like that this team should be able to be built a couple different ways. You still have problems with both your marksman players not being like super great and Dokla / Alorum not being super good, but like they get enough leads off their mid jungle that like they should probably have a slightly better record. They just throw all of them away if they could figure out what to do with all the pieces that they have. So I'm actually fine with either. Just pick one of those two setups because I don't think Big and Medium really.
I agree with that. Here's the thing for me, Loco. Like that one's more based on like, well, which one of those ends up going elsewhere, or which one you want to keep overall. Like you can definitely pick either. They're both good. The bigger question for me is what are they waiting for to put that Asta guy in at this point in time? What are they waiting for?
Sunk cost. Like you're telling the management and you're telling people.
Arrow's a fucking wash. Get him out.
I agree with you completely, and I do think Asta should be playing over Arrow. I'm just telling you from a team perspective, someone that's worked in a team. It's you've invested so much resource into Arrow with the visa and also the salary, where there is sunk cost, and you're thinking,
yeah, let's go win Academy Worlds.
Sure.
To be fair, Asta's laning was, and maybe it was partially like Gate plus Asta, but their laning was pretty bad. So like, Arrow is average CSD at 15, and Asta was the worst through his 3 games. But I think it's also the kind of thing where like you're developing a player as well. So like I would go with Asta because he has potential to get better, whereas like Arrow's just gonna keep doing this.
Dude, I actually had an interview with Arrow, and I asked him this question: like, you won with KT Arrows. Fucking that name, KT Arrow, but you won with KT Arrows, and then you came to North America, and then you got MVP on P1, and then you just been on the decline. Or we can talk. He's regardless if you think if he thinks he stole it or not, he still did really well, and then he's just being on the decline. And I asked him like, hey, what do you think happened? Like, why did you like start declining? And he said, what? It's a fire question.
I'll make it funnier, okay, right? So I'll change Loco's question. Loco goes to him. You used to be an LCK champion. You came to NA, you won the MVP. Now it's going really badly for you, though. Like, what's wrong? And he goes, oh, Loco, the only reason I'm still here in NA is because I've got a disability to get this fucking bag. And then he just pulls out like all a fucking massive bank vault type thing of hundreds that they must be paying him to be on this garbage team.
He talked. The real answer he gave was
not a real comment. Obviously, keep going.
Real answer he gave was a lot about motivation and a lot about like in Korea, like how tough it is and like how he has to compete, and he lost some of that. And I felt I actually understood his answer a lot. And just because you were good in Korea, it doesn't mean you're going to be good in NA. Like Korea is like a pressure cooker, and Arrow is like a really, really interesting phenomenon where you take like an absolute top tier Korean, like at its prime, and then you put him in NA, and then just slowly decline. Because Arrow came to NA in top form. He wasn't a Korean that came to NA and did badly. He was a Korean that came to NA and did well and just declined along with NA. So, I mean, go ahead.
He has a really like laid back personality. And like he's a really goofy, funny guy, from what I can tell. So like I can totally see a world where when you don't have like the pressure cooker, like you said, of Korea making sure he is doing things the right way, that like he'll start slacking in some ways. I don't think it's surprising at all.
Like the mad thing is, it's one thing in the past if you wanted name value. Like if you got Arrow because you wanted to say, hey, I've got an OGN champion or something, that's one thing if you want the marketing angle. It's like if you're going to import a Korean, at this point, I'd rather go with like some good Korean rookie. Just spend the money on him instead.
How many LCK champions are in the LCS now?
There's like, a lot now in there.
It's like 7 or 8 or something.
You know the bad part though, Mark? They're mostly in the bottom of the LCS.
Yeah, right now they're not doing so hot.
The number of fucking LCK world champions that are like the bottom half of the LCS, it's just depressing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like Impact.
That's it. You mean world champions, right? Not LCK champions.
No, well, world champion and LCK champion. It's like 4 world champion something.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Yeah, and then like 7 or 10 LCK champs. But either way, yeah, it's like it should not be a name brand move anymore. Like you can't keep being like it's another LCK champion who's past his prime. Who's excited?
Okay. Rest of Optic, we talked about Meteor.
You know, though, actually, I've got a question for you, though, for both of you. Right, I don't, like, what position did you play? You were a jungler or something, right, Mark?
Yeah, when I played solo queue and stuff.
Okay, so fair enough. So none of us are, like, mid lane specialists, so I don't expect, like, a super in-depth question here. But what do you actually think of how Crown individually has played? Because I have to say, this actually really makes me wonder about the quality of the mid lane at the moment in NA, because, like, he wasn't. Here's the thing: people maybe exaggerated last year how bad Crown was. It was really 2 years ago he was terrible. Last year he was fairly bad, but his whole team was collapsing anyway, and there was like reasons why he had his issue. And he still had some games in the summer last year where he popped off every now and then. But he's actually looked pretty solid individually in most of the games I've seen so far. So when you consider, as far as I can tell, he's just playing solo queue, doesn't communicate with anyone, and barely speaks any English. Like, he's doing a pretty good... It makes NA look shit, if I'm being honest. I'm not even saying that it's just flame. Like, it's a bad look. That a guy comes out of being, like, fairly washed up in LCK, and he's straight into LCS. He's actually doing pretty well on a bad team.
The reason's completely different. In LCK, the mid 2v2 and working with your jungler matters so much, and the tempo of things are really faster, and you have to move fast. In NA, speed is so slow. Like, the tempo of plays being made... And you can just really focus on winning the lane, and you can just grind people out. So I think that's why Crown's doing well.
I think he's been pretty good. Like, he's still like leads the league or leads mid laners in death. So I think he gets punished a lot by these kinds of things we're saying about the communication and the fact that Optic pretty much loses a ton of games in the late game. But I think mechanics wise, like the first game that he had when he played Lissandra into the counter match of Xerath and like juked literally everything PoE through it and was like, okay, this guy's pretty fucking legit. And you can see that,
legit, yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely nutty mechanics guy.
And you can see he understands all the 1v1 fights.
Yeah.
Right, the way he played Zoe this weekend to get those solo kills and like the angles he was shooting his paddle stars out and like when he was throwing his seeds out, all that stuff was super clean. So like he matchup wise seems to have really good knowledge and obviously has the mechanics. It's just about not being a good team at all. I think I don't know what his contract is, but I would love to see Crown in NA before that pressure cooker lets him become shit again on a good team.
The other part as well, though, Loco, is I also think this is like a classic example of like a mismatch. Like, if you're going to get Crown, you've got to have a Korean coach. Come on. Like, that's exactly the sort of player you've got to have, the guy who can literally communicate with him, because God knows what he's picking up from Zabutin.
Their assistant coach, Croissant, I don't want to be racist, but he's Asian. Is he Korean?
Let me think. Let me think. What's his? I would guess personally something like Vietnamese. That would be my guess.
Okay.
Don't think he's Korean. And by the way, it's not actually racist to say he is Asian. Is he Korean? Like, that's just actually asking for a fact. I know what you mean. Like, people won't worry it is, but I don't think it is.
His Twitter has an American flag, I think a Chinese flag, a German flag, and a Korean flag.
Okay.
Oh wait, I came out. So
his name is Chris Son, so that sounds more Chinese, if anything, doesn't it? Son's not a.
Son can be a Korean surname.
Maybe it is. Then who knows?
Okay.
Yeah, he has 4 flags in his Twitter bio, so I don't fucking know.
I'm guessing the 4 flags mean he speaks 4 languages, but I'm not sure how fluent.
I don't think he speaks Korean though, personally.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go to another shitter team. Let's go to Echo Fox. I'm gonna make. This is gonna get me a lot of hate, but I think Rush is probably the worst. Actually, because of Arrow and Ole, I can't say the worst. Rush is one of the worst imports in NA LCS right now.
Ooh.
I don't think that's even not unfair.
After the game, I said he was the worst jungler in the LCS.
I mean, Contractz will give him a run for his money at times, but you're not totally off on that one.
Contractz is good play sometimes, so.
That's true. I guess he does sometimes actually make a good play. That's probably, to be fair, isn't that probably the best way of describing it? The most whack thing about Rush is this. Because you know something, Loco? This is actually quite coincidental. But last year, before I knew that Rush was going to come back, because you know he came back at the end of like the spring split and joined KT out of nowhere. And in fact, obviously, it was even more mad he joined KT because they already had score and everyone was like, what's he even in the team for? I actually had planned in the spring of that year, before he came back to pro play, to do an article saying like the LCS needs Rush. Because if you looked at the LCS, like the jungle position was fairly iffy in NA, and then Rush, when he was on TIP, what a fucking monster he was. He was just like, he was playing like it was so lucky. He was just playmaking all over the place. Like if he popped off early, he would transfer that lead over the whole map, give you a chance to win. Like, sure, he probably shouldn't have been the MVP. That was a bit of a fraudulent win as well. But he was certainly very impactful. Then you look at the Rush that's come back now in 2019. This guy looks nothing like that guy. This guy's like doing none of that shit. He just like, half the time he's passive, half the time he just feeds. He does nothing.
I actually disagree. I do think Rush we see is very similar to the Rush we used to see. He builds inefficient. His pathing is erratic a lot of times. He goes for outplays. I think he's very much the same player, just in an environment where that kind of play and that kind of approach to the game can't be successful anymore. He's very much the same player that we saw before. It's just the overall field has gotten better.
You mean in terms of like mentality and how he thinks he can play?
And approach
context, he's not a very good player anymore.
And approaching the game, like how he's approaching and the things he's doing are still the same things that he was doing before. And he was on better teams before with.
What's
C9.
bizarre as well, Loco, is it?
But his team's fine.
What?
Oh, his team is. It's
yeah,
okay.
that's what I'm saying. I think obviously TIP is better than Echo Fox is, but it's not like Apollo's gotten better since those days. Phoenix is super inconsistent, but like he's okay. I don't know. Solo's okay. Like he should have a framework that if he wants to still be like a mechanical kind of crazy jungler, it should be fine. He's just like these plays don't work out anymore. I don't know.
I think also it's really hard to talk shit about Rush because everyone loves him and he's a fan favorite, and like no one wants to like shit on someone like that came back to NA and like everyone's celebrating, but Rush isn't that good.
I think I have a superpower, Local, because everything you just said there, I kept thinking, why does that make it hard to talk shit on him? You're like, it's really hard to talk shit on him because a lot of fans like him. It's like, yeah, but I'm not a lot of fans, so what would the problem be?
I guess
yeah,
not.
the thing is, he's so celebrated he came to NA. Come from fucking Timbuktu for all I care. If you shit, you shit. That's it. That's why I said about Arrow. I don't like. You're right. You've explained it, by the way. It is the sunken cost fallacy. Like their brain keeps telling them, but we paid all this money for it. It's like, yeah, you paid for a car that doesn't work, so get rid of it. A fucking horse is better than that. Like, it doesn't make any sense to have a broken down Corvette if a horse could take you there, does it? Yeah, I know the horse didn't cost 25k. And women, well, I don't know. Actually, to be fair, that would be a bad analogy. I was going to say women don't think horses are cool. Women love fucking horses. I'll abandon that analogy then. Anyway, back to Rush. You see the point there? It's like in this kind of scenario, because you know probably the biggest indictment against Rush this split is that he basically wanted to play with Phoenix, right? He chose this setup. It's not like he joined a team last minute. There's no teams left.
Mark, as resident Phoenix hater, along with myself,
what?
How do you think Phoenix has been doing this foot?
I think he's been. I don't think. Am I a Phoenix hater?
Apparently we are, according to Reddit.
Apparently we are. Oh, okay. Well, I thought I was always a defender of Phoenix. I think he is what he is. He's a really inconsistent player who doesn't like. I don't think he thinks about a lot of the things that he does, but he's a really good laner. And if the team fighting is like. I don't know how to put it, like not obvious, but like if it's a straightforward team fight, he does really good damage. Like he has good laning stats. Like everything about him is fine. But then you see some of the plays he makes, some of the decisions. You're like, what the hell? Like, I think he's okay. I think Phoenix is an okay mid laner.
Wait a minute though. You have to add in though. I noticed you conveniently left all of the intangibles out there, Mark, and you know this person as a guy. So why did he leave all those out, homie? Why didn't those get added on the list?
Yeah, I mean, so he can be difficult to work with, and he's not a great communicator. Like, there's a lot of problems with Phoenix, too. But, like, if Rush picked him...
As far as I can tell, all he can do is fucking 1v1 minions.
He's a good laner. He gets kills.
Yeah, he's Dynamite versus minions. If he plays versus a team of minions, he'd be world champion.
When I say laning, I'm not just saying CSing. Like, he actually puts pressure out and does a good job of harassing, and he'll pressure you pretty well. And then I think he team fights fine if it's like front to back type stuff. I don't like him on Assassin. Like, I mean, that's what he is. He's really inconsistent. You'll have a hard time building a top team around like a really inconsistent mid laner, and he has behind the scenes problems as well. Rush picked him because they're supposed to get along or whatever.
They do get along really well.
Right, and like, but Phoenix has lived up to his end of like, this is what I was billed as. Here I am, and then the Rush never came off. You got like this like weird like dummy version of Rush.
I actually agree 100% on that. Phoenix is doing his part of the bargain with like Rush. I'm gonna be a better teammate. I'm not going to cause as much problems. And he's doing all that, and he's performing. And
Performing?
Yeah, he's performing. He's performing to... I think this is one of the best versions of Phoenix we've seen. Honestly, one of the best versions of Phoenix we've seen.
You know what? I've never done this before, but I invoke the LS challenge. You know, like in Game of Thrones, they can always demand like trial by combat. Like I invoke the LS challenge. What we're going to do is we're going to get some games. I'll find these games. We'll set this up on your stream.
Okay.
We're going to find some games that you haven't seen that these players played in. We're going to turn the nameplates off. Maybe we'll even take solo queue games. And we're going to take Phoenix and we're going to take Froggen, and we're going to see who you think is the better mid laner of the two after we put the nameplates back on.
I think that would be a really easy challenge because Phoenix and Froggen plays really differently. Like it fits because the whole point of LS challenge is LS is saying I can identify which player is which, right? Based on how they play without the nameplate.
I guess that's true. I was saying who was the better mid laner though. But the problem is, I guess you're right. If you could tell his idiosyncrasies, you would guess it though. So I guess you could already cheat on that one. That's not that great a challenge then. I guess you're right on that one. The problem I was trying to make is that if you look at all the critique you just gave right there, because everything Mark said there you agreed with, right?
Yeah.
You do realise the majority of what he said were negatives for a mid laner.
Yeah.
So
And at the end of all that, you think the guy did his job.
I think what we expected out of Phoenix, he's doing completely. Like, if you ask me
I know what we expect, but I mean, as a player, he's not a very good mid laner, is he?
If you ask me the same questions about Froggen, right? Is Froggen doing exactly what I expected out of Froggen? Froggen is doing exactly what I expected out of Froggen. It's not a compliment, nor is it like a diss on someone. It's we're getting exactly what we thought we'd be getting out of these players.
Right, like, so I actually think it's a good comparison. Like, I would still put both, well, you're looking at it now, I'd still put both of them in the bottom half of the league, for sure. And, like, that's not good, and I think they both have their problems. But, like, you know, like, the same way that we're like, hey, Froggen is, like, can be a control, I think he can be a control mage player, just, like, kind of play the way Froggen likes to play. And Golden Guardians can be a top half of the league team. That doesn't mean I love the playstyle, but I think you're getting out of Froggen what you wanted. I think it's kind of the same thing with Phoenix right now. It's just like he was supposed to come, like it was supposed to be a package deal where you're getting this like mechanical, aggressive jungler who's gonna like snowball early games for you, and they're not getting that.
Yeah, but here's my problem I have here. It's like the Golden Guardians team, we've just talked about, there's loads of problems they have in that team, especially with like the setup of the team itself. You look at the Echo Fox lineup, like if Phoenix right now is really the Phoenix you expected, why did you ever give any credence to this team? You should have said this team would be 10th. Look at this fucking lineup. So we've got Solo as our top laner. Right, well, that's that carry threat gone. That's like a carry fucking Poppy. He's not doing shit. He might run up and lick you. That's about it. Then we've got a bot lane, which is literally just like they exist. That's it. They exist. They don't do badly. They're not going to ever be smashing the lane. They just exist. And then Phoenix is your mid laner, who we just listed all these problems, and then the jungler's trash. Great lineup. Great. Who built this team? Mr. Magoo.
I put him ninth. I put him ninth with only Clutch Gaming behind him.
Then fair play to you.
I thought
this your boy Loco here. I don't know.
I think I put them 7th or 8th, and then I think the bottom I think the bottom tier teams I had were Optic and FlyQuest. I mean, obviously FlyQuest did way better. Optic is doing slightly better. Yeah. This team is... I hate this team. I genuinely hate this team from the bottom of my heart. Like
put it this way, we don't even need to talk about ceiling with this team. Like, there is no ceiling.
Let me go on about why I hate this team. This team does stuff that drives me insane as a coach. Apollo picked Varus when Varus had his W bugged, and every single week on like Monday or Tuesday, Riot will give you an email of the known bugs in the game. They know there's bugs in the game, and they don't want players to get fucked over by the bugs, so they will email you the list of known bugs. And they still played Varus with that bug, and when I asked Apollo and Solo about it, they were like, oh really? Varus had a bug? So I don't want to blame the players, but dude, management, the coaching, are you guys serious? You guys get an email from fucking Riot telling you what bugs are in the game, and you're not telling your players, you're not reading the bugs over. Like, it's one of the first things I did during morning meetings, like on Monday or Tuesday, is, hey guys, these are currently the bugs in game, make sure you don't abuse them. Riot will ban you for it. Make sure you don't pick these champions, or if you are picking these champions, make sure you know that there's these bugs in the game. Another thing, they self-counterpick so much. Enemy team has a Syndra, let me pick a Lissandra into it. Like, their drafts don't make sense a lot of times. And lastly, like, they let the players do what they want way too much. There's so many times where Rush is building completely wrong. So the two most gold efficient items are Ninja Tabby, or level 2 boots, and jungle item for junglers. skip both of those to rush Guardian Angels and to rush, Stopwatch and what's that 1,200 gold item that gives you HP and AD as you kill more stuff?
Phage or Jarm's Fist.
Jarm's Fist. He builds gold inefficient item, and these are stuff that coaching staff should be catching and telling him, hey, you should be building properly. Like, this is a team that's player run. This is a team that...
I think you've just nailed another one of the worst fucking imports to the LCS. His name's S Song. You familiar with that guy? This guy's a fucking bum. This guy steals checks. You know what? I don't know if that's too harsh. You know what? Fuck it. I don't care. MarkZ, but I don't give a fuck. He steals checks almost as bad as that Peter Zhang guy did.
Oh.
These motherfuckers, all they know how to do is just fucking get one of those pen erasers and erase one of the zeros off and put another one on. That's all they do in LNA. I don't even know what they're doing as coaches. They're so mismatched to the teams they're on. It's unreal.
Mark, do you think Song's a bad coach?
On TSM now.
TSM Academy.
TSM Academy, yeah.
There we go. Fair enough.
Mark, do you think Song's a bad coach?
I haven't worked with the guy. I heard a lot of stories about TSM. I heard some stories when he was on Immortals and they were doing well. I would probably say, yeah, I think he's a bad coach. Because
Shade.
And it's not like a game knowledge thing, but I think it was Tony did the dive one time. Maybe it was Parth. I think Parth did the dive one time. And he talked about like the elements that go into coaching, and like game knowledge is obviously a really big one. But then there's like systems, leadership, and like all these other things. And as far as I can tell, the only thing Song has going for him is game knowledge. He's not a vocal leader, and he doesn't have good system understanding.
Ouch.
From what I've heard. So like obviously I've never directly worked with the guy, but the people who have worked with, these are the kinds of things I've heard. So like I don't think you can be considered a good head coach if you can't lead a team and you can't like organize.
He basically should be an analyst, right?
Right, yeah.
It makes sense, because I always say this to Loco. One of the things that I actually feel is like really tough if you're a Korean coach is you're walking into a scenario and all the things you've learned about how to like deal with Korean players and how to make a Korean team work and how to get a Korean player to buy. None of that applies when you come in. I know he's got a couple of Koreans here, but when you've got all these like Western players, you start from zero basically.
Yeah.
And I think he was really good on that Immortals team, because that was another one of those teams where it's like, well, who's going to be like the source of tension? Like everyone got along on that team.
That seemed like a pretty chill team, yeah.
It was like Pobelter, Smithy, Turtle, or was it Turtle? It was
No, it was
Cody-san,
yeah.
It's a pretty cool team actually, yeah. No troublemakers.
Right. So like you don't need leadership necessarily in a team like that, because the players are all like relaxed and you don't need to control. Whereas like a team with potentially Rush and Phoenix, we need to be like, stop building that shit. Like I don't know if he's that guy.
So I don't want to rewrite history. I think Song was a great coach on Immortals, and Immortals wasn't like an easy team to coach. They did the whole Dardoch x Smithy swap, and then he was able to take them to Worlds, able to take them to finals. So I think we have to give him credit where it's due. But in NA, it's about how you deal with troublemakers, and it's about how much buy-in you can get from your star players and keep people in line. And as you guys said, that's where Song fails. I think Song has great game knowledge, but he can't get the buy-in from the players properly, it seems like, and he can't work with troublesome players. So
I'll agree with you on that one then. I guess I'm just thinking mainly of the TSM, and then now obviously in Echo Fox. I guess if you count Immortals, yeah, he did seem to do his job in that one. Like, I don't know how much he did, but whatever, the team was successful. I got to give him credit in that sense. But in that sense, I would just assume he's mismatched with the team he's on then. Or he should just be a secondary coach, and maybe he's brilliant at that, and then you bring in a different guy as the head coach.
I think it's so hard to go into assistant coach from a head coach role. Ego-wise,
it's hard to humble your ego, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
let another guy sort of take over things, and you just ride his coattails. But eventually, you both get to the top. That's the thing, Loco. If you do that, so you have to understand, Loco. If Robin went out there by himself, he's just a boy. He'd get killed. But if you went with Batman, now he could maybe get cooking. So all I'm saying is getting that fucking Batman. Anyway, whatever.
Okay. Whatever, Robin. All right. Oh, last question about Echo Fox before we move on. People ask me all the time, and Lorlo has so many fans for some reason. But Lorlo or Solo, what do you guys think?
You know what? As much as shit as I talked on Solo, I'd still take Lorlo over him. Like, Lorlo is a very flawed player as well. And in fact, the one thing that worries me about Lorlo is he does seem to talk as though he thinks he's going to be a carry player at some point in his career, which I think is like incredibly naive if you've seen the way it's gone. But actually, he's a solid enough tank if you have him on the right team. He's not a terrible player. seems like a guy who's somewhat dedicated to the game. So I think he's better than Solo personally. I've seen almost nothing out of Solo ever, mate. Like I don't really know how he's even still in the LCS. I assume he must do well in scrims or something, or maybe in the off season he works really hard or something.
I think Solo's okay. It feels like maybe I'm forgetting some, but I almost never feel like he's getting blown out of the water. Like I don't think and that's not a compliment by any means, of course.
Sure.
But like it doesn't
No,
feel
but
like
it's noticeable. If you're a top laner and you fuck up a lot, you'll remember it. Yeah.
right. So I think he's been like if he's the guy that you get because you need a top laner and he's not going to cause problems in game and you can kind of like leave him on an island and do this other stuff. I think that's where Solo should be, and I just think that this team is not delivering on the other parts of the map at all. So like I don't think either one would make a difference for Echo Fox. So I'm kind of up in the air. I think Solo's been okay. I think Lorlo, if they wanted to try him out, like go for it, and maybe he can be a more carry player if he still thinks that's what he can be. But I don't feel too strong about either of them.
Seems like a weird gamble move to make.
No.
Like at that point, what's the point in him making that move?
I guess maybe you see more of a future in Lorlo, but yeah, I think both players are pretty even, and it's even and mediocre. So don't see a big upside either way.
I would say though, whoever's been built, like it's funny because if you go way back to when Echo Fox first came into the LCS, it was in 2016, right? Mm-hmm. And that was actually the same time when they had a CS:GO team. And their CS:GO team, by the way, was unbelievably bad. Mm-hmm. Like they even had a couple of big names. They had like Sean Gares, who was like a legendary leader.
Shazam.
They had like Shazam wasn't a bad player. But the problem is this team, I once wrote an article and basically the way I described it was like dollar for dollar spent, they were the worst team ever made in Counter-Strike because they'd like never qualified for a fucking LAN. The LANs they did go to, they got rocked in nearly all of them. Like the reason I'm bringing this up is because the same thing basically happened with their league team almost every year. Like every year they put together these whack-ass rosters where even when they can get a good player, so they got Froggen or they got Hooney or they got Dardock, it's like they never put the right sort of team around these players though. They never make like a team, an actual League of Legends team that makes sense on paper, has role balance. Like this guy will be a shot caller, this guy is more of a passive player. It's almost like they never looked at the attributes, they just looked at the names and were like, oh, good names, shove them all in line, there you go. It's like, think about how many years this team's gone and people know, especially with that whole Looper move, people know this team had money. This team isn't one that has no money and they have to go for like absolute shitters. Like they should have had good lineups by now.
Mark, they give you vested equity, quit casting Riot, and be a GM/coach for this team.
For Echo Fox?
Yeah. Would you take
You
it?
do a way better job, mate.
Would you take it?
I don't know. Do I still have to answer to like people, or do I get like carte blanche? Like this.
First year, you get full control, and then depending on performance, what is it? They might take control away. They might give you more control.
It's an interesting question. I would say no, just because I do a lot of other things too. Like I would probably have to give up
offline,
TV
yeah,
and like all this other stuff that I do, and it's like it's probably not worth it.
Okay.
But I think there's a lot of. I think what's interesting is like what happened with Deficio, right, in Europe, and like being a GM kind of thing for that team. I don't know. I also think it's the kind of thing where people assume things are easier than they are from the outside, and then you get in there and you're like, fuck, this is.
No, you know how I feel after stepping away. I feel like, because when I was in things, I was like, damn, things are so rough. But after stepping away, I feel like actually there's so much idiots running things. It might not be that hard. You don't think so?
I'm just going to say, Loco is saying this while he keeps leaning into a microphone that he's not using because he's got another microphone on the side of his head. I'm just going to point that out. Listen, I like little weird things, Locos. That's just I like the way you made that scene.
This one's for Discord, and this one's for recording, so it gets a cleaner recording, and then this one to make sure I can talk to you guys on Discord.
You're actually ahead of the game, then, Loco. I wasn't aware of that. Fair enough.
All right. But I feel like after stepping away, I'm like, what the fuck are some of these teams doing? Like, I don't even work full time at this, and this shit is like, you should not be doing this. And Echo Fox is one of those teams I look at and be like, what the fuck are you guys doing?
Yeah, but you're like, you went from coaching to not coaching. I mean, like, being a GM and like really having to work with budgets, like, it's very easy for me to be like, why did you put this team together this way? And then you're like, well, because I can't sign any single good top laner import wise, so this is what I got. You know, like. I think that's one of those things where, like, when you step into the role, there's a lot more responsibility. Like, fuck, does a GM need to figure out, like, everything that goes on with the team. Like, hey, Spectrum, why is my internet fucked up? Like, hey, where's this housing? Where's the rentals? Where's like, where are we gonna eat practice? Let me order all the computers. Like, I assume the GM handles a lot of that stuff too, which is like.
Unless you're on a team with Loco, and I had to fucking handle a lot of that. I had to handle catering too. So I feel confident.
All right, yeah, dude, step up.
No.
If you look at the sheer number of players that we've mentioned in this episode who are Koreans, who are like used to be good and aren't, and are just wasting import slots pretty much, or are now residents, and that's why they still get to stick around. It's like I said before, Loco. If you were someone who wanted to be a GM in NA, your number one task right now should be getting to know the European challenger scene incredibly well, because these are the players, dollar for dollar, would be the best signings you could make. They also are actually going to all be able to speak English, and they're all going to, like, some of them are going to become really good players. It happens every year in the LEC. So if I was an NA guy, that's where I'd be putting my money, not trying to find who's the best of the washed up Koreans that I'm going to have to pay over the odds for. Like, the amount you pay for them is so out of whack as well. If they were taking minimum salaries, I'd get it, but some of these guys get paid mega bucks.
I think what if it working towards European Academy and like European scene is really good too, but also just having a good grasp on Korean scene and like picking up the right Koreans.
If you get Korean challenges, I agree. Yeah, that'd be the way. Like the idea of getting the big name is so wasted this time.
Also, just getting the right Koreans. Even like we call Koreans washed up, but there's also Koreans that are just fine and like you can pick up. It's just they pick up the wrong Koreans and then they're like Koreans are washed up.
Look how many of them go to China. You know how many players in China turn out to be monsters? That guy Clade who came back to SK Telecom. There's a guy Flawless at the moment who's on Jingdong Gate. There's so many players that are actually sick players. Like if you could definitely with the money someone like Echo Foxes, they could get these players. I'm telling you.
I feel like
if you're willing to go to China, you'll definitely go to NA. Come on.
They don't do the research and they pick up people based on names. That's the problem.
Yes, I agree.
All right, let's go to next team. Another team that's catastrophic failure right now. 100 Thieves.
100 Thieves?
Yeah.
Ah, what a surprise. I have to say, first of all, I will say, I promise I can't remember where I ranked them before, but I know I never thought 100 Thieves was going to be a top team. Like I know I always thought they had flaws, but I never could have imagined they would be this bad. I know people love to use the excuse with a team that loses, like, oh, they haven't figured out their identity. Usually that means, like, you know, you've got like 75% of it, you're just missing, like, oh, where do we go with the last 25%? What is the identity of 100 Thieves?
It should be
5 bank robbers stealing salary, being shit. I guess I won't count Someday in that. Fair enough, Someday's pretty good, but this is a terrible team. This is a really bad team. And speaking of wasted imports, who the fuck thought importing Bang was the right move for this team?
Okay.
He does nothing. He just looks like fucking Korean Apollo. He's Apollo who can't speak English. There you go. That's Bang. And you paid over the odds for him because he had fucking world champ. It is, isn't it? Because my point is he's not a bad player. I'm definitely not dissing him, but he can't do anything in the game.
I think their identity should be 1-3-1 and split pushing. And for like the whole Bang pickup thing, we discussed over and over, and I think I talked to you about this, Mark, but the best roles to import are mid and top. And if you're not importing mid and top, it can be really dangerous, especially for AD carry or the communicated roles like support and jungle. I think 100 Thieves got scarred by what happened last year. They were scarred by having Cody Sun and Rikara play versus Doublelift. And they're like, holy fucking shit. If you want to win NA, we need to be able to beat Doublelift and we need to have a better AD than Doublelift. And they tunneled really, really heavily on that. And they try to get a better AD than Doublelift. I think arguably I can see why you think Bang would have been a better AD than Doublelift. And I do think if you separate that they're playing in NA, which you can't because they are actually playing in NA, that Bang can be better than Doublelift. But in NA, like it's hard to have an import AD that's better than Doublelift. And they tunneled way too heavily on that and it hemorrhaged their roster.
It's weird because I think there's like a world where like if you took Spring 100 Thieves and you put like Bang in there, it's a great team, and I think that's what people were envisioning. But like they hadn't been good about playing around bot lane ever since they swapped Onda for Meteos. Like when they had Meteos, him and Afro did a really good job of kind of spoon feeding kills to Cody, who would then become like a mid to late game carry threat. And Someday was kind of on an island just being good by himself, and Ryu was hit or miss. But like ever since then, like they had been super suspect with like early game stuff. And so like now you just have a jungler who doesn't know where he should go because they've never, like, no one has ever been good about playing around Someday in NA. Like Dignitas sucked at it.
Sure.
Everyone's just struggled to play around Someday. It's true again. He's still a good player, but it's just hard to play around him for whatever reason. Can't play around Huhi, and like Bang and Afro don't do anything in lane. They get like Lucian, Braum, and like even farm, and like it's just like I don't know what this team is supposed to do. Like, who do you play around? And I don't know what the fuck is going on. And I can see why they think Bang is going to work, because it's like, hey, 100 Thieves from Spring Split with a better AD. What's not to love?
Exactly.
And it's not what they are. They're not that team anymore.
Mid lane not clicking is really huge. Jungler not being vocal is really huge. I think that is actually bigger problems than other things. But a lot of the blame just goes on Bang and Afro because they are the bigger names. Bang and Afro problematic on their own right, and they definitely should deserve some of the blame. But they're actually number 4 and 5, or like even 5 and 6 in the blame, where it's getting flipped and people are like Bang Afro, Bang Afro, Bang Afro. They have so much good knowledge and they have so much good, I would say, direction within the team, but it's just so segregated and it's so independent of each other. Like, they're all trying to do different things and they're trying to accomplish different things, and they had success in their own ways. Like, Someday had success in his own ways, so did Huhi, so did Afro, so did Bang, and they're not like getting together and they're not under one vision or under one direction.
What do you think of Afro? Because like people fucking hate him right now, and like they go so far as to say like the MVP from Spring Split was totally undeserved, and like he's the worst support in the league now. I don't know where.
The problem is, like, I'll do like the analysis I did before of like the Coach of the Split storyline. So the big problem here is, I will say there are a lot of people who watch League of Legends where if they love a player who was a great player, the second they have a good game, it's like in their mind everything that they did before is like, oh, he's back. He's right back to where he always was. He's one of the best supports. Like, he's a fucking legend, shot caller captain. It's like. And the problem with that is, it means that the people who watch and see all the games they have that are bad and that are like, if you ignore the guy's name, he's actually like, not that great a support. They then go too far the other way to try and counteract that. Like, half the problem is when everyone does hot takes, it's like we all radicalize each other's hot takes to become more and more hot because we're trying to like battle. Like, but you said this, so I'm going to go hard, twice as hard the other direction. It's like, it just makes us all idiots, unfortunately. It just becomes a clusterfuck. So, like, he's clearly not one of the better supports. But then again, what can you do in this team? Like, this team, its construction looks very flawed. Like, if you let's say he's still a good shot caller, who the fuck is he shot calling to? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, how can you shot call when you don't have a lead? When you don't have lead, when you don't have priorities, what are you shot calling? Guys, play defensive, keep scaling. So my thoughts on Afro, definitely regressed somewhat and definitely lost some of his finesse, and laning has been a huge problem. But he's not in a situation where he can show his strength. So, weird spot to be in. Where all the other problems on the team and his own individual problem are not enabling his like strength in shot calling and strength in playmaking to come out. So, he's probably looking worse than he actually is, but he is looking worse than he usually is.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think the thing that always drives me crazy is the whole like he didn't deserve the MVP thing. It's like
you're rewriting history.
Crazy. Yeah, it's like they finished first that split. That split started with like Licorice and Huni smashing the league, and then the patch change where you couldn't like carry tops anymore, and C9 fucking tanked, and Echo Fox tanked, and TSM sucked, and Team Liquid was not like god tier team yet. And it was like, who the fuck should have won the MVP? Like, there was not a good candidate at all that split. I don't know.
Completely brand new lineup, just literally made from scratch.
Right? Yeah, first split in franchising, and they win the regular season. And he's like the vocal shot caller in all their games.
They were, their style was pretty solid back then as well. Like, they had an identity. They won games.
Yeah, they went super late and.
No, but it won.
Yeah, 1-3-1, 50-minute games. Who are you gonna give the award to?
If I had to guess, he's probably doing something. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so like it's crazy that people didn't think he like. It was not a great split for MVPs, but like. Yeah, he deserved it, and now he sucks, and the whole team sucks, and then the last place team. But like that doesn't invalidate Meteos' whole career or Afro's whole career.
No. Well, that is the other problem, isn't it? As well, there are too many people just waiting to rewrite all of history. Like, oh, he's bad now. Oh, I always said he was bad. It's like, well, that doesn't make sense either, does it, mate? Like,
yeah,
you actually make your case worse if you try to claim the guy was always bad. Like, you make a better case if you point out how bad he's gotten now.
So another huge topic is people are blaming the hell out of Prolly. Do you guys think he rightly so deserves blamed? What do you guys think about it?
The big question is obviously how much input does he have in these roster moves? I mean, I would have to speculate, just knowing Prolly as a person, knowing a little bit about Nadeshot and some of his philosophy coming from the Optic days and how they think about their teams, I would guess probably had a decent say in them getting banned, in them getting Hui. Like, I would guess he had to sign off on these moves to happen. I doubt he just came in and they told him, oh yeah, we've got these players and here's who you're dealing with. So if that's true, I have to immediately judge him on that and say he did a bad job in the off-season. Like, he didn't pick the right players. And in fact, worst of all, he sacrificed all the identity they had that was positive. Like, as much as you want to say 100 Thieves was shit at Worlds, they were, but that was mainly the whole AD carry scenario. Like, the actual team, they could still win games. They weren't the worst team ever. So that's not a great look. And this is someone who generally, I think, is a pretty good sort of X's and O's coach in the game.
Mark?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think the roster decisions from summer until now have all made the team worse. Basically, like, bang for Cody / Akars, like, whatever, but using your import slot there as opposed to grabbing a mid laner when you could have done that. Like, could you have grabbed PoE? Could you have grabbed Crown? Could you have found a marksman, like, who's a North American player to just hang out and do something else, like with the identity of the team, as opposed to trying to rebuild the identity that you had with Ryu and all these other guys spring? Like, I think that's where most of the blame lies, is like, this team doesn't function well. Yeah, could have got Pobelter. Like, it feels like there were so many good moves this offseason that 100 Thieves could have made, and the ones that they made were just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's the key aspect you have to add in. It's like I said about Echo Fox. Part of the reason I flamed Echo Fox is that I know they have money, and I know they could get good players. They aren't like the bottom place team with no money. Same thing for 100 Thieves. Not only do they have the money, but they've just come off a year where they were in like the finals, where they had an MVP, they've gone to Worlds. Like, that's a really attractive destination. That's why I said in like a past episode, like, them getting Hui is so egregious because that could have been Pobelter. You're telling me he picks FlyQuest over 100 Thieves? There's no way. Like, and on top of that, in fact, I know now people are going to flame him, but even have an Afro move, that's a great sell right there. You tell me if you tell the person, oh, you're going to join a team with Afro move, people don't want to play with him. Of course they do. He's another player who has like a storied career where his teams go to the top.
Yeah, I almost said Path of Exile. Jesus Christ. Power people. Like, he was a beast on Optic, and
that
like,
would be a great pickup, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you could sell that, and then you have an import or no import slot, but there's fine 80, like Asta, like, who the fuck's this guy? Could he have played on this team? Probably.
I think that
Turtle got to be considered, right? If he was available. I don't know if his contract was up in FlyQuest or not.
Mark, the Asta thing's out of left field. No one knew Asta was going to be good, so that's a left field.
Could you have broken up the Apollo Hakuho bot lane? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but there's another thing though. To be fair, like I was saying before, is like, so are people not even investigating NA now as well? Like, what's going on? How are people not finding these players?
It's,
you know, one of the biggest problems is, for some reason in League of Legends specifically, it does seem like one of the games where it is almost impossible from like Academy / Challenger or solo queue to actually know how good a player is. Like, that's not the same in other games. If you showed me a demo of a CSGO player and he's playing in the worst league ever, like, I could still see from some of the qualities, like, yeah, he could probably be a good pro player, actually. I wouldn't be able to guess exactly how, but I could get like a pretty good feel for it. In League, I don't even blame people. I think it's incredibly hard. I think it's really, really hard to know how good people will be an actual pro player. And you get a lot of busts if you take the challenger type players. So I see why people don't gamble, but the problem is overall you must gamble because you're not going to get a super sick massive name in most cases.
So I mean, to finish up on the Prolly thing, I agree with you guys majorly. I think Prolly deserves more of the blame the more he was involved in the roster building. The less he was involved in the roster building, the less blame he deserves. But whoever made the roster decisions.
If you imagine a world in which he really did just come in and they were like, here's the roster that you have for this season. Well, he's not a fucking miracle worker, is he? So like, I can't blame him for what's happened since. And when I look at it now, I have a rule whenever I do analysis local, which is if you are going to flame someone and say they did something wrong or they're bad, you should be able to offer an alternative that they could have done. Because if you yourself don't know what they could have done, how can you know that what they did was wrong? Maybe that was like a bad decision, but all the other decisions were even worse. So along those lines, I don't know if you look at this lineup. Like, if you make me the coach of this lineup tomorrow, I'd fucking I'd say, what day do I get my first paycheck? Friday, and then I'd fucking quit on Saturday. Like, there's nothing I can do with this lineup. Like, there's no other way to play through them. I barely know what else you could do in draft. Because another thing, when a team is as bad as this and is bad in every phase of the game, no wonder the draft goes to shit. What champions are you picking? The players probably have no fucking champion pool.
I think to say one good thing about 100 Thieves, I don't think they're actually the 9th, 10th place team. I think
they're a placeholder for now. Okay.
they should go up in the rankings a little bit. Like I think they're like super demoralized and shit right now, but I think they're not actually the worst.
There's a world in which Optic could certainly go below them.
Okay.
Echo Fox maybe. CLG if they collapse. These teams could all be worse in theory.
Right, like
difference is it wouldn't make 100 Thieves a better team. It would just make them technically above them.
Right, like the game that they lost to Optic. The game they lost to Optic this weekend was like they were up like 8,000 gold or something and fucking had Baron before they just all died immediately after they got the Baron, and then like got picked off by Crown in a 1-3-1 like 6 times in a row, whatever the fuck happened. Like that was a game that they should have won. They actually won the game and then they threw it. So like there's a lot of games where I'm like, they suck, and like they probably shouldn't be a playoff team, but I also don't think that they're tied for last place come the end of the season.
Let's go to the team that Mark's supporting right now.
Can they actually see it on the overlay though? He's got a CLG hoodie on.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like cut off.
Yeah, they can see it. They can see it.
Okay, fair enough.
This team still doesn't know when people ban Sion Kench. I thought they would have figured things out, and their identity is still stale. It reminds me of Golden Guardians so much, but way more one-dimensional and way more dependent on their mid. They're a more extreme version of Golden Guardians.
As long as he's not called Froggen, you can praise all the same exact qualities, and then in your brains, he's one of the best mid laners. Go on then, go on. Say it, motherfucker. Go ahead and say that Power of Evil's a really different player from Froggen. Go and say it. I know you want to.
Power of Evil and Froggen are extremely similar. Power of Evil is
it's weird that, isn't it? Yeah.
No, I think Power of Evil and Froggen are extremely similar, and they're cut from the same cloth. Power of Evil is a little bit more versatile and a better carry, and that's the difference.
Literally. When fucking Weldon was here, you were practically like polishing up your fucking fan club for Power of Evil. You call him like a top 3 solo carry in the league. By the way, not at all a solo carry player, but okay, I'll give you that one. I just assume that my joke here would be that when LEC players come into the LCS, you just like don't watch them on the map. It's like you have to maintain your record of never having watched the EU LCS in any capacity.
I've been watching so much more of it.
They're not that well. To be fair, it's a lot better this season, but they're not that dissimilar as players. Is my point there. It's like you did oversell it a bit when Weldon was here.
I still think he is one of the best single carry players. Like if you have to build a team around one single player, you don't get good pieces. You get one great player and you get four shitters.
Right, then you meant something different by that. Because when you say single carry, I thought you mean like solo carry. Like he just 1v9s the game. There's no universe in which fucking Power of Evil 1v9s games. But
if you get one good player and four shitters, then I think it's Power of Evil.
I've always thought he was a good player, by the way. So I'm not hating on him. Anyway, keep going. I derailed you a bit there.
All right, go ahead. Mark, what's your thoughts on CLG?
Oh, I was going to just chime in on the PoE thing. I think
come on.
He's super good. I think he actually is a similar-ish player to Froggen. I think he's still very greedy in the early game, but I think he can actually like execute 1-3-1 and these kinds of things better. As well as like Loco was saying, I think he makes better use of counter pick. Like and actually gets winning matchups with counter picks, whereas a lot of time when Froggen gets a counter pick, I'm not like, ooh, that was gonna shit on this thing now. Like even when it doesn't work out, like Xerath into Lissandra should be a winning matchup that should counterpick and win the lane, and then like keep Crown under. It didn't work out, but like at least in theory, like when he used counterpicks like the Cassin as well, he's going for more. Yeah, he's usually using his counterpick a little bit better, but like either way, I do think they're similar.
Oh, what about as a team then? What do you think of
what's their future? Let's talk about that. What is their future, Mark?
So FlyQuest and CLG both played C9 and TSM this week. Both of them got 0-2'd, but like I think the collective game time in the CLG games was like 50 minutes or something. Fucking abysmal. So I think CLG, like, oh, they got 0-2'd by number 2 and 3 in the league or whatever they are. Like, sure, but they also, it was like not close. It was not close at all. Whereas the FlyQuest games were close and they could have won both of them. So I think they're in a lot of trouble depending on what happens with a team like Golden Guardians and 100 Thieves to lose their playoff spot, because they're so limited in what they want to do. It's like get Darshan on a tanky frontliner who doesn't need that many jungle resources, put PoE on a mid to late game scaler or like potentially a cool counter pick, and then bot lane don't feed your brains out and like.
As usual, same MO as they always have, yeah.
Yeah, and then like hopefully your like Biofrost in the team can make some good plays in the mid to late game, and that's how they win. And anything that goes different from that, they instantly lose. Like, oh, Darshan didn't got a bad matchup, it's over. Oh, their bot lane fed, it's over. Oh, PoE didn't get like super sick counter pick matchup or something, it's over. Like they lose so many games so many different ways. It's not like they always lose from a bad Baron call. It's like they can lose in every lane at any point.
They can lose from every lane.
Some teams have a lot of win conditions and like not that many lose conditions. CLG has massive lose conditions, I'd say. Like that's a way to put it.
Oh man. So did you guys watch the cooldown? It's where like after LCS they bring on 2 players to talk and like do game show with them. And one of the game show was Darshan, and they had to guess what fans thought his best champion was. You know what one of the answers were?
Scion, I assume.
I ain't sure, but there's like a bad answer. There's like a what the fuck.
I know the answer, but
oh, you mean something good? Like I assume Aatrox then.
No. Mark, what was the answer?
The answer was none.
Fans put down.
It was fan voted. They were like, "What's Darshan's best champion?" And enough people put none that it was a common answer.
It's not pick out of like 108 champions, right? They write down the answer and they put none.
And that was the winning answer. Like
that was one of the winning answer, like out of the 5. Oh man, poor.
Well, that's the thing. Obviously, is like, to be fair, like this just shows how like positive reinforcement is really dangerous. Because I bet when Weldon walks back into the LCS room after every time CLG plays, he goes, "Darshan, you know what? You are proving me completely right that talent doesn't exist."
One huge topic with CLG right now is top 3 teams, right? TSM, C9, and Team Liquid. In no order, don't fucking yell at me about that. Or one of the old guards. There's 4 old guards with CLG and the other 3 teams at top, and CLG's at bottom. And there was like a Twitter thread about it, and one of the things that Travis mentioned was CLG lost a lot of senior leadership along the years, where TSM, TL, and Cloud9 got to keep a lot of their senior leadership in.
Okay.
Like Jack, Andy, Lena, Parth for TSM, and then
right.
TL,
We mean non-players people. Yes.
Yeah, and
staff. You're right. Okay.
TL and like Steve and like Artress and like Kane for some time, where CLG had like a rotation of like Tony and then now Weldon, and also like before Nick Allen there was some other dude, and then there was the dancing guy from Dignitas. What was his name? Melexia, and then before that there was Hotshot and its mom, where they don't get to retain any of the knowledge, and that's the reason, even as an old guard, why CLG has failed so much. Like, why do you think CLG?
My theory would be very different on that one. My theory is a very simple one. It's economic theory. Is you look at the timeline of when these teams got investment. Mm-hmm. So, right, yeah, true. People like Team Liquid got it way earlier than the others. And Team Liquid's whole MO from day one with Steve was always like spend, keep getting as many good players as you can. Right? The difference is, not only did CLG let the only like premier pieces they have go, most of whom are still like among the top pieces in the league right now, but their timing of when to take the investment was too late. They waited until they were a shitter team before they took the investment. Cloud9 and TSM didn't have to get the investment because they were still top teams. They still had like, you join Cloud9, you're in TSM. Those are great like ancillary reasons to join a team. CLG didn't have that anymore. Like CLG let that one lineup that made the MSI final ride it out way too long. How long did that lineup go? Like a whole extra year more or something mad? Year and a half more maybe? Like, I think they went to like another Worlds, and then they obviously had that whole year where they did nothing. Like, they waited way too long, so they lost everything. They let the best pieces go. That's a great reason to join a team. I'll join a team if I'm an AD carry if Aframu's there. Another great reason to join is you're a top team. Oh, I might play in the finals if I join this team. That's before we ever get to how much money you're paying them. Now, yeah, they can't pay as much money, but, you know, they could, in theory, have never paid as much as Echo Fox or Immortals, you know, the teams with the big VC anyway. So the real problem for me is CLG painted themselves into a corner by trying to play it safe over and over again. And then finally, when they took the VC like everyone else did, well, they're just like everyone else now. They may as well not be CLG. They may as well be a brand new team. Like, to me, I guess I sort of agree with you. They have nothing in common with those other legacy teams.
Mark, what's your opinion on why CLG failed while the other legacy and old school teams did well?
It's interesting. I think the only team that's actually been good about turning over talent, I wouldn't even really say it was TSM, because they had this like weird thing where they were so good that like everyone just wanted to play with them, and they were the biggest brand. So like talent acquisition for them was like not a challenge. Like it was like, yeah, let's get Haunter. Yeah, let's get this guy. Yeah, spending Mythy, great. Like even when it didn't work out, like, oh, Yellow Star, fuck it, whatever. Double F, sure. Like everyone wanted to play on TSM. So I think that they didn't have to make any tough decisions. C9 made tough decisions, and then TL, like Thorin was saying, just kind of like kept going through it. CLG didn't make any good pickups from 2015 onward until you could argue maybe this
Power people, yeah.
Yeah, because they went for Reignover after he kind of looked like a turd on TL, and there was like this huge gamble, and they had no contingency plan. And
you know, that was the most unforgivable part as well. If they'd been the ones who'd got him after Immortals, I'd say fair enough. No one could know that was going to go wrong. But they got him after that year on TL. Like that makes you question the management right there.
Yeah, so I thought that was like when, like you said, they probably held on to the other team for a little bit too long, believing in the power of friendship.
Well, I guess the irony is the one player they really did get, actually, Mark, was Dardoch, and obviously they just booted him immediately, right?
Yeah,
he was actually the one big pickup they got.
Yeah, they got Dardoch, and they were a first place team, but they were having problems or whatever behind the scenes, so they got rid of him. It felt like they kept getting rid of players, and like the contingency plans were not there. It's like, here's Omar God, here's our contingency plan. It's like, okay, that was not good. And like, we'll get rid of Tony, and like they didn't really have a contingency plan. So like, I just felt like every time they made a move, it wasn't like they had something else that they were going to try, because they just like kind of rode things out randomly. Whereas like when TSM had the Yellow Star thing, like they booted him, and then they're like, all right, let's try Ignar, let's try Biofrost, let's try a bunch of people and figure out who works best with our team. I don't know. It felt like a lot of those moves were I don't even know how to put it. Like short-sighted, or like they didn't think that they could go wrong.
I would say they were
like
unduly optimistic, you know.
Yeah, maybe too optimistic. They just thought like this was the move. This is gonna fix our problems. We're good, and we don't need to have a backup plan or something.
They're very conflict. They try to stay up. Conflict averse. Anytime someone is causes conflict within the team, they're like, we don't want conflict. We're not about that. And then it makes them very conservative as a team, and they don't make power moves as a team, and they're not very risky. It's a very bad way to look at business and bad way to look at rosters in esports. I think in esports, you get rewarded so much for taking the right kind of risk and look like willing to take into conflict, and CLG is the direct opposite of that.
Well, especially if you add in, right, if this was like, let's say 3 years ago, and in theory it was possible to run an LCS team as a business and try and make a profit, then I would maybe understand that. Like if you just decided, you know what, maybe I don't have the genius strategist that's going to make me have like the right path to go down to get the big signings, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to try and grind out like a tiny little profit. And if my team can make playoffs, cool. That's like a good expectation, but we're not going to break the bank. We're going to play this very safe, and we're going to see what goes. The problem is that no one's like that in LCS. Everyone's just spending money. Everyone's spending loads of money. Even though I have a 10th place team now costs a fuck ton of money. So like at this point in time, it doesn't make sense to be conservative like that. I mean, we already talked about it on the Weldon episode, but if you look at the CLG team now, and you know they had the option to get Flame instead of Darshan, if you just put that team with Flame instead of Darshan, they'd already be a better team. They might be contending for
they'd be third or fourth. Yeah, they'd be fifth or fourth, or even third maybe. But yeah, we don't have to talk about the details.
Think about how much of their problems that would immediately shore up.
They'd
have 3 solid lanes.
Let's say 2. I can't say that for bot lane right now. Let's say 2.
I mean, but to the point, like, yeah, it's a better lineup, almost inarguably.
And not dependent on Sion, can split push.
The reason they didn't do it is they didn't want to spend the money. So,
100% money. Flame,
I get it, but
Flame wanted to stay in NA. Flame wanted to 100% stay in NA. I promise you guys that. He wanted to stay in NA, and he was looking for NA teams. Let's finish with Mark's favorite team, the team he ranked 10th and actually got 10th. I think you were the only person, like, I'm sure there was some fan that ranked Clutch Gaming 10th. Were there other analysts that ranked Clutch 10th?
I think I was the only person I know who put them 10th.
Well, grats.
Hooray!
I think that's actually quite a tough one to pick for 10th, though. So what was your reasoning for it?
It was just like one of those things where it felt like for them to be good, too many things would have to go right. Where like, Hooney's a really volatile player, and so like usually you want to supplement him with like stability in other places. but like you literally have zero stability anywhere on this team. So like even if Huni is like start of spring Huni, which he wasn't for all of summer, like you're gonna assume he gets back to start of spring Huni, and Piglet and Vulcan are gonna be able to consistently go even in lane or win it, and Demonte is not gonna be a problem, and Lyra is not gonna be a problem. I just felt like there was like we even had Seb Parker, the guy who kind of put the team together, say like it's a high variability team. And I agreed, but like the chance of hitting like the ceiling was like impossible in my opinion. So like at best it was like a 5th, 6th place team that's really volatile and has some crazy wins and some crazy losses, and at worst they just don't function at all. So I just thought they had a really low like window of where I would place them. Whereas like even a team like Optic, like Crown and Dardoch are great, whatever, you know, like all these other teams around them I thought had much easier situations to be okay. That was it.
I think Demonte is getting crushed by the Koreans. Like, being a mid laner for this team as a native North American
You were loving
talent.
him like 3 weeks ago or something.
No, I said I loved him for the first week, and I said he would need to show me more. That's exactly what I said. He needs to show me more. It's a dangerous spot to be in. And he had a great first week. After that, he got crushed by the Koreans.
Tell you what, though, there is one player in this team who still looks half decent.
Piglet?
Of course. I told you, mate. I did tell you. Mm-hmm. You don't forget how to right click on a fucking minion, do you?
He looks,
fair enough, right?
You know what we said about...
He's totally disconnected from the team, so it's irrelevant, and they're not going to win the games. But of all, on this dumpster fire, he's actually the half-decent element in the team.
Yeah. Him and Vulcan. I think Vulcan's okay.
I think Vulcan is something they can build off of in the future too. But even if Piglet looks good, right? What is the future for this team? And like, is it even feasible to build a team with Piglet anymore and like contend?
The bigger question is, how do you possibly justify, even to yourself, looking in the mirror before you go to sleep if you said Park, keeping Huni in this team? I know people want to believe that they're going to be the one who replicates what happened in Immortals. It ain't going to happen. Like, last year was already ropey enough by the end. This year's terrible. Like, this is just a waste of time. And he's even got a Korean jungler, so there's no excuse anymore. Like this, it's just his fault, isn't it? He's just not a good player.
I don't have confirmation on this. Remember when we talked about on Barry's episode, how Barry said there's players with guaranteed contracts?
I could believe his probably is, right, if he's come back from Korea.
I think it's Huni, because Echo Fox were making a play for Peanut Huni, and then Clutch was also making a play for Huni, right? And then so Huni's in a situation where both teams are throwing money at him, so Huni's in a lot of control. So pure speculation, but I think it might have been Huni with the guaranteed contract. So they're in a really, if he does have the guaranteed contract, they're in a really fucking awkward position. You promise guaranteed money to a player that's very, very rare to have guaranteed contracts in LCS right now, and you gave a guaranteed contract to a player that's not performing well. It's a super tight position to be in as Clutch.
Did they sign Huni away from Echo Fox, or was it a trade? They the teams basically swapped, where Clutch is now Echo Fox is Clutch. Was it
It was. I think it should have been open market, because it wasn't they traded Huni to Echo Fox. The only trade that happened was Apollo, Hakuo, and Solo. Those were the only players on long-term contracts. I think everyone else was let go or their contracts ended.
Okay, because I was gonna say, based off how way back when I had Seb Park, I talked to Seb Park about it. He was saying like there's some years where like you feel like you can make the move and try and build like a really amazing team, and there's some years where you feel like you can't. And he was saying this is a year where they didn't feel like they could get into a position to be a title team, and so they made a very volatile, variable lineup where he was like, yeah, we just picked a bunch of players who like can, if they all synergize, like be disgustingly good, but they probably like it's a high risk thing. And one of the reasons he was saying they did that was because they could get a team to contend with TL normally.
Then shouldn't you cut your spendings, Mark? If you're in a situation, hey, Golden State Warriors, too fucking strong. We're gonna need to go into rebuilding year. Let's tank and get draft picks, and let's not pay the players that much. Like, that's what we should be doing. Team Liquid, way too fucking strong. We can't contend with Team Liquid. Let's take a lot of bets on NA rookies and NA talent, and if we strike with any of them, then we have a good building block for next year. They didn't do that.
No, which is why I'm not quite sure on the strategy, but that's how it was pitched. And that's why I'd be surprised to hear that Huni has like a multi-year guarantee contract. Or
That's
like
a speculation. No confirmation.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Speculation.
Like, I hope it's not true because like, yeah, I don't think this team is.
Plus, another thing that I find about the construction of the team that doesn't work in my brain is like the 3 Korean players they have, at least when they've played in NA, are not known as particularly good team players. They're all kind of like solo individuals. So like even that doesn't make sense. Like on one hand, if you can get 3 real Koreans onto a team, because you have to obviously fuck around with the resident thing, that should be OP. That should be really amazing if you could have that. Because at that point in time, they can obviously all communicate, should have extra synergy. They have none. It's like they've picked the wrong players to do it with. Like what's mad is, again, this is another team where you have to look at them and say, think of all the players that for sure would accept the offer to go to this team. Like you're telling me Hauntzer wouldn't take the offer to be top laner for this team, and Paul Belter wouldn't take the offer to be middle. Of course they would.
Yeah.
These are better for in players' brains. Even Clutch, like a newer org, they're still like a sexier destination than Golden Guardians or FlyQuest. Like they just are. So like I feel like. That's what's bizarre about the story you're saying there, that they went for kind of like, here's like a bunch of players and let's see how it does. Because it's like, they've spent a lot of money to do it all the same.
Yeah. This is definitely one of the worst roster building. Oh, I also think like a huge problem is, how good do you guys think Demonte is?
The problem is, the more I've seen Clutch Gaming lose games, I have a hard time putting too much of it on him in that scenario. Like, look at the team he plays. Like, first of all, he plays with 3 Koreans and who all fucking speak Korean. Like, I bet he's having a brilliant time in the game. You'd like to play mid lane where you've got an ADC who will never let the fucking support leave the lane, and the jungler's Korean and his job is just to go where Huni goes. Like, yeah, great. That sounds like playing it on nightmare mode, playing the LCS in mid lane. That's not fair.
Mark?
Yeah, I don't know where to put it, because like 2 wins that they got was when Demonte did well, and then like since then I don't think he's been super good, but I just can't imagine what it's like playing on that team to that point. Like, what is your role? Are you supposed to be like, are we picking 3 carry lanes and everyone's just doing their best to get themselves ahead? Are you like playing Orianna for Huni and Piglet like as a support player? Like, I don't know what they're expecting him to do from like a team play style, right? Like, what's their identity? Like, I have no fucking clue. He played Akali and Galio sometime. Shit, I don't know. It's like I would not want Demonte's reputation tarnished on this team if they do bad. Like, I would want another team to give him a shot after.
Exactly.
This.
Yes.
That's the problem. They should be determining whether Vulcan or Demonte are pieces they can build for in the future. But with the roster they built, they can't even determine if Vulcan or Demonte are going to be fine. But Vulcan looks fine for him, how he's playing, how he's synergizing. He looks good individually. But if they can't answer the question about Demonte at the end of the split, then they're going to have a hard time adjusting for Summer Split on top of that. So here's another question that a lot of people have been throwing. If Clutch is going to be outside a playoff berth, do they start putting in academy players? Like, what do they do with their roster?
How good is their academy team?
I have no idea.
Let me see.
Let's have a look if there's anyone we actually know on the team.
There's like Sun.
Oh, they've got Cody's son.
Yeah.
And they've got Papa Chow. Back in the day, or tried out for TSM, failed, but whatever.
Their academy team is last place also, apparently, according to Twitch chat.
Okay.
What do they do now?
Good.
They're double 10th
Well, the
place.
big problem here is like obviously one of the.
Oh, you cut out, Dorian. I guess let's. Mark, do you want to go first until Dorian catches up?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up the roster right now for spring.
Damn.
Clutch Gaming has some guy called Rodov, Major Danger, Sun, Cody's son, Papa Chow. I don't know. It's like you could put Cody's son in with Vulcan, but you already like, I don't think Cody's son's like a not known quantity, I guess. So it doesn't even feel like you're really experimenting with that.
Mm-hmm.
So it would maybe be like a kind of blow it up, and like you're saying, like, hey, who looked good in a challenger and stuff in Europe? Like, maybe you can find another Broken Blade or something like that to bring over and swap out your import spots with. But yeah, that would be my first guess of what you would do if this team failed.
They're in such a fuck position. don't think they're gonna put in their academy players because the sunken cost policy applies to them like double. They have 3 Koreans that are or actually 2 Koreans that are underperforming, and 1 Korean who's a resident that is good but also troublesome. Like they're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
A lot of people are asking to talk about their coaching staff. Do you think you can even make any kind of conclusions about their coaching staff?
I don't know a single thing about McCrag.
And I don't think we can even judge McCrag. Like, can you judge him for what happened on this team?
Assuming that he didn't have like super control over the roster, which I don't think he does. It sounds like it was Seb Park. Like, you can't even blame him for the offseason stuff potentially the way that we did with Prawley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the exact same situation I would put Prawley in. The more control you had over the roster, the more of the blame you deserve, and the less control you have of the roster, the less blame you deserve.
Yeah, but I would say just knowing the clout of the
Seb
coaches,
Park?
like you would have to assume that like McScrag did not have as much of a say as Prawley.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
What's mad about that is that was just some sort of Discord bug, you know. Because the mad thing is, I could hear you the whole time. When I looked, my internet never even went down.
Oh, really?
It just like kicked me off the server or something.
Okay.
Whatever, we're back now. Anyway.
Yeah, we talked about all 10 teams. Let's do final topic and we can move on unless there or we can end the show unless there's something else you want to talk about. So, actually, we missed TL. Holy shit. But TL's so boring to talk about. What is
JJ is really good, and so is the rest of their team. But they're not as good as they should be.
They don't push themselves at all, and they're content with winning NA. From not mentality-wise, how they're playing, they're not challenging themselves to do anything different, and they're very, very just solidifying how they're winning NA. Duncan, your opinion?
The problem is I can't hate on it. Like, they are winning most of the games, and they still do look good generally. I will say, like, it's not their problem alone, but it has always been a problem of NA. Like, you know, that whole angle, like, actually Doublelift said it in that interview I did with him, where he couldn't get past in his mind the concept of, like, how are we ever going to beat the Koreans? Because, like, you know, it's like we get to a level in NA, and that's as high as we have to get, and then every time Worldsat's, you know, we start from here, we have to go up to where they're at. It's like, you do realize if you were only playing to win the game, you've been making a problem. You've been doing the wrong thing your whole career. Like, that was never the aim as a pro. It was always to, like, become the best player you can be, to be the best team you can be. And so even if you were 18-0, you should have been taking those games apart, looking at LCK VODs and going, look, this wouldn't work there. Like, you know, we actually left our gap here at the top lane when we had our 2v2. Like, I know it sounds easier said than done, but it is mad to me how many times this pattern is repeated in NA again and again with, like, a dominant team. So I can't put it all on Team Liquid. It's basically the culture they live in at the moment, but someone's going to have to get past that sooner or later.
It is true, though. Like, it feels like the most aggressive team in North America is never first place team. Like, it's always the second or third place. Right now it's C9. C9 has a much faster average win time than anyone else in the league. And, like, well, outside maybe CLG, the one time that they won, but like it almost never feels like they're that aggressive. Other teams.
Hot take: Doubles not having the best split of his life. I think Doubles playing a little bit worse than he usually does, even a lot more worse. But Core JJ and Jensen have been such upgrades that it's been fine. I see him get caught out way more. I don't see him build the same kind of lead, even with a better support. So he's not going to win MVP. And also, he's never going to be kicked from the team, but it's something interesting. Doubles playing worse than he normally does.
I can see that. Has he played with a port who doesn't speak English as well before?
Ole.
I mean, he had Ole, but Ole's pretty fluent. He speaks like
pretty good English, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how Core JJ's English is. Well, Core JJ was over here with Dignitas, so it's probably about the same level, to be honest. Okay. That's not a reason.
All right. Apparently, we actually missed one other team. We can touch on them really briefly. C9. Anything you guys want to touch on with C9?
They did an interview where they said that they think Zazel says he thinks that they can overtake Team Liquid as first. Do you think that they can do that? Because I think they can.
I think they believe it 100%, and I think C9. It's either going to be C9 or TSM that's going to beat TL in the finals, and you're just picking one of the two. Do you like TSM better? Do you like C9 better? Licorice over Impact is definitely a thing. I trust Licorice a lot more than I trust Broken Blade, and TL bot lane not as strong as they've looked in the past. So when we go back to the C9 TL when they met, like the whole fucking Nunu thing throws it out of whack, and Niski not being fully adjusted to NA. So next time they meet,
it was the first game.
Yeah, I do think C9 is gonna look much better, and TL hasn't improved. TL's damn good, but they haven't improved, so I can see that. And gun to my head, I probably would take C9 over TSM to beat TL.
Here's the difference. I think it's not impossible that they could finish first in the regular split. Okay, in the best of ones, yeah. I actually like the style of play Cloud9 has. They're a pretty good team. The difference is, in a playoff series, I'll take Team Liquid all day to beat them. Like, I actually think Team Liquid style is going to be very good in the playoffs as well. That's a fucking great style to have for a best of 5 series.
Yeah, it's kind of like basketball, where it's like the run and gun crazy team almost always slows down, and the defense gets better in 5-game series. So like I could definitely see that also.
It's
happen.
like if you think about it, the whole reason most of us, I assume, are probably going to say Cloud9 has a chance to is because the ceiling's crazy for the team. Like they can be very, very good, and obviously they can play a whole bunch of different styles. The difference is Team Liquid, yeah, they're a bit one-dimensional, but it fucking works, and it's reliable. It's really reliable.
Oh.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I would put for why C9 has a chance is because they're probably at their strongest where Team Liquid's at their weakest, which is like top side of the map. So like if there's a decent carry meta come finals or something like that, maybe Licorice can exploit Impact, but that's really what you'd be leaning on.
Oh, here's one thing to say as well, Loco, is last year's Team Liquid, this will sound mad, but I don't blame them whatsoever for what happened to them at MSI and Worlds, in the context of, even if they hadn't have had a few dodgy games, I don't think they were ever, getting to the playoffs of these tournaments or fucking winning them. Like, they just didn't have the tools to do that. Like, they had the tools to win NA. They did not have the tools to do much internationally. The reason why it will be egregious if something like that happens this year is this team doesn't have to play this particular style at all. They're choosing to. Yeah. Like, they are coached and they are choosing to play a similar, like, late game style. Like, they have the pieces here to do any style they want, pretty much, except carry tops. That's about it. Any other style they can play in the game. Of course they could. Look at the players they've got.
Yeah.
Also, either Jack or Reaper is a genius, because Jazo looks better than Smoothie, but I'm not sure how they figured that out or how they made that decision a year ago. Or it's not even a year ago, I guess like 4 or 5 months ago. Like right now, Zazo is better than Smoothie, like from eye test, from stats and everything.
How's that pretty better for Cloud9?
Yeah, how the fuck did they know that? Because like Smoothie looked great when they benched him. Like how the fuck did they know Zazo was gonna be better than Smoothie? That's an insane call.
What's crazy?
Go ahead.
What's crazy too is like we both worked with Smoothie, and we both know that he talks a lot and sometimes too much. But then I was talking with Hai, who apparently played with Zazel before, and he said he had the exact same criticism of Zazel. So it's not even like evident from a behind-the-scenes perspective, because I've heard similar things about both of them, where like they're both super talkative in game to the point that sometimes it's an issue. So like I don't know, like you said, how they would exactly know that.
Do you think it's luck, or do you think like I'm overthinking it, like, or their management knew something, or like they were able to like
It's happened way too many fucking times for it to be luck. Like with Licorice, with Zazel, with Smoothie when they had to replace Lemonation, with fucking Jensen, with Niski now. Like they almost never make, like they had Ray in Impact and they were trying to find a replacement for him, and Ray wasn't quite good enough, and so they knew not to swap Impact hard out for Ray. Like if they never make a bad decision, so you have to think that it's not luck at all.
And if you notice, you've nailed it right there as well, Mark, is they actually managed to, on the one hand, do what CLG does, which is they're conservative. They never hard switch straight to the person. Like, they didn't literally say, hi, you're 100% cut, never come back, Incarnation's here now. He was still, like, around, so they could bring him back in if they really needed to. When they had Rush, obviously, they had the Rush scenario where they were able to switch back out with him again. They on the one hand do the risky move that they bring someone else in, but they like wait to see who they want to choose out of the two, and then they make the right play. That's actually quite a clever way to do it if you look at how many times it succeeded.
Yeah, but Bunny and Smoothie was the same thing. They had Bunny for a little bit. Like they never make a bad decision because they apparently they don't just make the decision. They always weigh it. So like I don't know how they knew Smoothie was going to be worse than Zazel either, but like it's a pattern that they do all the time.
Dude, it's not even like Smoothie's 10th support and Zeyzal's the first support.
Right.
It's like Smoothie is maybe 3 and Zeyzal is number 2 behind Core JJ, but they knew that Zeyzal would be 2 and Smoothie would be 3, and they made the swap. Fucking insane. Okay.
Well, they also probably, to be fair, on like the Whip or Soaz angle, probably thought like, well, if they're similar level to us, let's take the really young guy who's got all these years ahead of him, whereas, you know, who knows where Smoothie's going to... They probably went with that angle as well, I imagine. Like, put it this way, if you've already had Smoothie and you weren't the best team in the LCS, the last thing you want to do is let Zeyzal go and then him become like the best support on TSM or something. You're going to look like a moron, aren't you? You'd rather see where that goes in a way.
Plus, you know, who knows, Contractz, like probably Zeyzal was cheaper.
Almost certainly, right? Yeah.
Figure. And they let go of Contractz, and now Contractz look shit. Holy, they just look like God in so many of the roster.
He meant contracts as in the like physical pieces of paper that you sign. I know what you mean. Like,
also the contracts part, like they let Contractz go.
They let him go at the right time for sure.
And now he looks like shit. Like, holy fuck, C9 management, like props. Okay, last 2 topics. Who's your MVP, or who's your guess at MVP?
Fucking hell, that's a hard one. Who is the MVP of this league?
I'll give you 2 that are really commonly thrown out: Licorice and Core JJ.
Because the problem is, like, except to maybe Core JJ, I don't think I'd give it to anyone on Team Liquid.
I think Core JJ is the leader and player of the games right now. Obviously, they won the most games, so he can get it the most. But he has been so noticeably good. Like, his Rakan was gross, his Alistar's gross, his Tahm Kench is gross. So I think he's probably the favorite, like, on the best team. He was a big name pickup, and then he comes in and, like, has flashy games. He feels like a pretty heavy favorite to me.
Here's my problem, Loco, is if I pick someone from Team Liquid, it has to be called JJ. I don't really know who else I would put for that. Cloud9, it's really tough to pick. Yeah, I guess he's got to be a candidate. TSM, I'm not putting anyone from them. You know what's mad? I actually think legit you have to actually say as a candidate. I think I actually might have Wild Turtle as a candidate.
What?
He has to be in the conversation. Why not?
Why? I would put Santorin over Turtle.
On that team.
I would put Santorin over Turtle on that team. If I had to pick someone from FlyQuest...
Yeah, that's because you have fucking bedtime stories with him in your fort. We all know that, yeah, but I have to just go for what I see in the game League of Legends. Like, you know, I'm not his best mate. I don't have like his mum cooking me stew telling me all great stories about when he was a kid or something like. So, as crazy as it says, I said that as a hot take, obviously. He's in the conversation. I would just go with Core JJ. Right. Fuck it. Team Liquid's the best team. Why not?
Mark.
He's looked very good.
Because I'm a biased opinion, out of FlyQuest, if you had to pick an
Everyone's
MVP.
a biased opinion. You don't really understand.
Mark, because I am biased towards Santorin, if you had to pick one from FlyQuest, who would you pick?
Probably Pobelter than Santorin.
Okay.
Pobelter's not a bad shout either.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with that team, and the same thing with... same thing like a lot of the top teams have, where like they have so many like equalish skill players. Like Team Liquid has like the first, second best player at almost every position. So it's not like someone is like the first best player on a roster full of like fourth best players. Yes. It feels that way almost down the board. Like FlyQuest has 5 of the 4th best players.
Well, put it this way, it's funny that this is everyone thought because of how Worlds went last year, like, oh, it's all about just solo players or like how good the mid laner and the top laner is. It's like, it's not at all, mate. Like this looks like one of the most team oriented metas I've ever seen in League of Legends. You can't be a bad player on a good player rather on a bad team and just pop off every game and carry it. You just can't even do it. Who's doing it in the LCS? Like, almost no one.
Yeah.
No, but I also think the LCS kind of touched on it a little bit. It's not good right now. Like, it's
in a bad spot. Yeah.
The amount of games where like someone built a big enough of a lead to end the game and then didn't is like probably why the individual carry potential looks so low in NA, because it's like not like the meta isn't in an okay spot for. Like, there are plenty of carries being played. Jace is top. Like, there's shit everywhere. But like,
of course, when
you can't get a Baron consistently, like you're gonna rely on mid to late game team fighting so much more.
You know that saying, Loco? I don't know if you've ever heard it, but like they always say that like an indictment of modern society is that some ridiculous amount of people, like the majority, are only one paycheck going missing away from being like on the street. Like, you know, if one paycheck misses them 1 month, they won't be able to pay their rent, the utilities, you know, the mortgage. They'll just be fucked. It's the same in the LCS, mate. Like, you know how many of these teams are like a 0 or 2 week away from being like the worst team in the LCS? It's ridiculous. Like, it's 3/4 of the league. It's mental. It's not that everyone's competing for the top. It's like a race to the bottom or something. There's so many teams could be last place. Like I bet right now, if we had to, even though there's like still a few weeks left, if we made a bet right now as to who the bottom 3 teams would be, I'd be surprised if any of us have got it right.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised. Yeah. Like we could all get it wrong. That's what's mad.
That was my final topic that I wanted to do before we end the show. We talked about top 4 and we agreed TSM, C9, TL, and FlyQuest are pretty much guaranteed top 4.
Okay.
Who are your last 2 for playoffs?
For me, I think Echo Fox is going to drop out.
Okay.
I think Golden Guardians will go in, and then it's a battle between 100 Thieves and CLG for the last spot. And I would probably give it to CLG right now.
So CLG Golden Guardians for you?
Yeah.
Oh man,
I have similar thought because I also agree. I think, like, funny enough, the very first topic we talked about, just because they have a way to win and it actually has worked a few times, I actually think Golden Guardians could sneak a spot. So I'll take them. And then, like, the big problem I have is CLG in theory is a better team than 100 Thieves, but 100 Thieves has better players. So I have a real tough time figuring out which one actually yields you whatever the 5 wins you might need to do that. So I could go either way on that one. I really could go either way. I'll probably just say CLG. Like, I'll just trust that in theory what I think's a better team overall makes it.
Chat going crazy for Optic. You guys don't think they have a shot?
No, because put it this way, like, Optic's a great example of where, again, I don't claim to be some super analyst for League of Legends, but to me, Optic is more broken than Golden Guardians or CLG, because if you are getting early game leads constantly, consistently, and you have 2 of the best junglers, how are you losing these games? You know, like, think about, we were talking about 100 Thieves. Those guys can't even get a fucking lead in the game, and they still occasionally win the game. Like, Optic has them all day long, and what's mad is they have them against the top teams as well, local. Like, they're not just doing it against the bombs. They're getting like decent starts against most teams. They just can't ever close it. Like, what happens is, I've seen them so many times. They are so bad in the mid game, it's unbelievable. Like, if I was their coach, I mean, obviously this is a joke because it'd be the worst way to coach ever. I would just be like, right, gentlemen, every instinct you have is wrong. I want you to ignore every instinct, like, because every single decision they make of like, right, we can skirmish now. It's like you can't do any of that stuff, mate. You can't.
Mark,
I think Optic has a chance if like that Meteos Dardoch situation gets solved and they can, and like with the bot lane and like shot calling with Big gets figured out. But they, like Thorin's point, they don't have a play style right now. It's like your team has good playmaking in the early game, but that's not an identity if like you don't have a way to consistently translate that to a win. Like, I don't know, if I was CLG versus Optic, I would pick late game. I would try not to fall too far behind the early game so that they completely snowball, and then we'll outscale and win because they can't do anything mid and late. Whereas like Optic feels like they need to like fix themselves to win games, whereas CLG can just keep, and Golden Guardians can just keep doing the same thing and like, oh yeah, we found another tank in the top lane. Yeah, they banned Urgot, but now we got Jarvan for him. Great. You know, like, Darshan played fine this weekend. The losses didn't even come from.
I'm going to go with Golden Guardians also. I think they're solid enough in their style, and everyone is so bad it's not going to matter. And my last team is going to be 100 Thieves. There's just so much collection of talent on that roster. And CLG, there's a huge hole in Darshan, and there's a huge hole in their draft. I'm not sure how they're going to patch that up. I also don't know how 100 Thieves are going to patch their problems. It's just crazy hard to bank on a team to be good when all these teams have shown so much flaws. Yeah.
Oh yeah, what was I'm trying to think. I was one of the point I was going to make there when Mark was talking. I'm trying to think what it was about though. It's about Optic. So let me think what it would be. Oh, that's the one thing I would say is, in light of the conversation we had earlier about who are the coaches, etc. If I had to guess purely based on speculation, I would guess Sabateen's probably doing a pretty good job. Like, if you have a lineup that just is such a mishmash of players like they have now, that on paper shouldn't work at all, and you are consistently getting early game leads, I would guess that means the initial game plan is good. The difference is once the players take over, yeah, they fuck it up all the time. Like, once it hits 10 minutes, it's over for Cinderella, isn't it?
Yeah.
There you go.
Mark, anything you want to say before we close out the show?
Thanks for having me on again. I'm glad to be the first with an asterisk repeat guest.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're doing Hotline League in an hour and a half. So people can watch that as well. We have DeMonte on, so we can talk about not getting his reputation tarnished on Clutch Gaming while they're in last place.
Okay. are you or Travis gonna turn on stream? Because we got decent amount of viewership, and I can host right now if you're gonna stream for an hour 30.
We'll see. He usually turns on only like a half hour before, so I think it's a little early.
Okay. Well,
I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you for doing the show, Mark. Dorian, any final words?
There's never going to be any final words. The final words is fuck everyone forever until the end of time. There you go.
Okay.
What do you expect?
I don't know. I thought
Put it on the tombstone.
Exactly.
At the time, yeah.
Have you never noticed, Loco? I don't do outros. I just cut the fucking video because who gives a shit about all these narcissistic cunts just going into my dog and my grandma? Who gives a shit? You said everything about League of Legends. That's it. Cut.